I've been in here for 17 years and I can't get 90 days. I think I need to try something else. And you would think that I would put two and two together and say, maybe I should try something new after 25 to 35 new rehabs. But people are dying every day over this, over bad information. That was probably the grossest thing that ever happened to me, is when I revealed that I was sexually assaulted, and he said to me, what was your part? There was nothing in AA that was going to heal a young 3-year-old version of Justin that was raped. There wasn't. There's steps, but trauma accounts for over 80% of us and why we use. Obviously, neurodivergence is not mentioned in the book or the steps because they didn't know about it back then. Any program that has a foundation in prayer being the way out is a red flag to me. Then my sponsor, DJ AM, overdosed and died. And he had the most solid program out of everybody that I knew. I believe that he would still be alive today if he didn't have all of that AA programming in his head that was telling him that the only way he's going to get better is rock bottom. And this is what upsets me so much about AA. We have non-professionals acting in a professional manner. He said, well, your friend Sarah was shot in the back by her new boyfriend that she met at an AA. Her funeral, and all my AA people were, because they know that I brought her in. Every single person said the exact same thing to me. I'm so sorry, but she died so you could live. Hey, Justin, Sarah died so you could live, right? 12 people in a row. I actually thought about ending it all that day. And I'm like, holy shit, I am in a cult. And it seems like a death cult because everybody around me is dying. I realized I had to deprogram all these thoughts about myself. I would sit in the mirror in the morning and say, you are a powerful person, capable of great change. I didn't feel powerless anymore. I was so scared to take a psychedelic because I still believed in the mind-altering theory, that at any time you take anything mind-altering, you're going to end up at rock bottom again. And finally realizing that, hey, a psychedelic just cured me of what no rehab could do. I really believe that what the doctor and I have come up with, and I know this is a bold statement, is one of the greatest advancements in substance use disorder treatment. And I feel like in a way we have cracked the code and are able to give people mild to moderate symptoms instead of severe symptoms that you would see at a traditional rehab. There's so many people like me that really look at themselves as a failure because they can't make it into a system that was never made for them. It's so sad to me. You are not a failure. You just haven't found the right program, the right medicine, and the right people. You're not once an addict, always an addict. What kind of shit is that? It's so condescending too, to even say to us that we are not capable of change. None of it ever sat right with me. If you are seeing yourself as a failure because you didn't make it in rehab or you didn't make it in AA, I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. Those programs have such abysmal success rates that for you to make it would be, going against the odds. So don't beat yourself up. There's plenty of other options out there. Thank God for ChatGPT. You could even just punch in, hey, what are some great alternatives to a 12-step rehab or a detox?
Normally, I really only kick off with one question, which is, tell me about how long you were in AA and when did you leave? But with you, I actually have a lot more questions because I've just bantered back and forth with you a bit through social and through the comments or the DMs. So I'm actually quite curious about your story. I would love to hear about how you left AA and a little bit about deprogramming. I'd also love to hear about your current work.
Yes, I'm working with a doctor now. I co-created this detox, but I was also the owner of the first Ibogaine aftercare in America. So I wrote the protocol for what Ibogaine aftercare should look like, treated about 300 people that came through my place. So I have a bird's eye view of what that medicine can and can't do. It cured me.
Yeah, there is so much I want to dive into. Should we just start?
Yeah, let's start.
All right. Hello and welcome to Kirsten Johnson Podcast. I am super excited you are here today for this great episode with Justin. Justin, I'm not even sure how to introduce you other than saying I've loved vibing with you in the comments. It's very clear to me from seeing you on social media and following you on TikTok that you know what you're talking about. You know about the, I'd say, psychological manipulation within AA ideology and a way out of that. But you also know very deeply from what I've seen about modern addiction recovery. So I would love it if you would give us a little bit about your background, just so people get the context of who they're listening to today.
Okay, awesome. Hi, guys. I hope everybody's having a great day. Bella, come here, honey. I have a new foster dog, so my name is Justin. Hi, everybody. I've been a pioneer in treating substance use disorder in alternative manners for over a dozen years now. I was, after 25 to 35 12-step rehabs, I was considered a hopeless case, constitutionally incapable, et cetera, and I ended up, not listening to the group. And I went down to Mexico 13 years ago, and I took a really strong psychedelic against everybody's wishes. You can imagine what they were saying. A drug is not going to fix a drug problem, et cetera. You just need to work it harder. And I'm like, guys, I've been in here for 17 years, and I can't get 90 days. I think I need to try something else. And everybody was like, well, we really recommend you just go to another 12. And I'm like, I'm not going to listen this time. So I went down to Mexico. I actually did the psychedelic. It revealed to me that I had sexual trauma at 3 years old that I did not know about. It was buried. I wasn't really in shock. It was more like, oh, okay, now I get it. Why didn't anybody ever talk about this could possibly be a thing? Why didn't anybody ever talk about how trauma as a child affects us? I'm glad that there's programs I think it's ACA that's a little bit more advanced when it comes to dealing with childhood issues and how, having alcoholic parents can influence us, but there's still 12 steps, so not for me. Any program that is, that has a foundation in prayer being the way out is a red flag to me. I was so blown away by what happened with me with Ibogaine because I came home and lo and behold, I had no cravings. I felt like this different person. I didn't engage in my other addictions, okay, because every single time I'd leave rehab, sure, I'd be clean off heroin for a little bit, but, the sex addict would come out, the gambling addict would come out, the spending addict would come out. This time when I came home, I'll never forget this too. I was leaving the airport and a text message came up like, hey, I'm so glad you're home from Mexico. Come on over and cuddle. And I'm just thought to myself, I don't love this person. I was like, I can't even believe what I was, how I was treating my body, like it was a carnival ride or whatever. And for the first time I thought it just came to me that the next person I'm with, I'm going to be in love with. And 6 months to that day is when I met Tashara, who is our combo practitioner, but we dated for a little while and then just understand that we're much better friends. So what happened with me is I instantly started working with Ibogaine. The clinic that took care of me saw me as a golden goose, and they knew I would bring in clients. I was a semi-famous DJ here in Las Vegas. My AA sponsor was DJ AM, who was very, very famous, the most famous DJ in America at that time. And my uncle was Abby Hoffman. So they saw me as a golden goose for marketing. And I was able to bring a lot of people down to the Ibogaine clinic and then walk them through it and then assist and be a part of their treatment. But the one thing I noticed was what happened to me wasn't happening to the majority of people. Even though I felt like I was cured overnight even, that wasn't everybody else's experience, And what I realized about psychedelics is they're basically holding a magnifying glass up to who you really are. If you are really a good person underneath all that muck, that we had pile up during those years, that good person is going to come out and shine. You know, if you are a sociopath, oh boy, it's going to get real interesting, you know, because it's holding a magnifying glass up to it. So if they were bad before, now you can imagine if they had, narcissistic traits before, now it's through the roof, you know. And also one thing that does happen with a lot of people in psychedelics is they develop spiritual narcissism. And I think that also happens in AA too, where they believe that they were chosen to do this work. And to tell you the truth, I'm guilty myself. I really believe this that first year. I believe that since I set my intention that if this works for me, that I will give myself to God, and I will, I'll be there for other people like me that just haven't been able to make it in traditional rehab. And I did go to 25 to 35 rehabs. You would think that I would put two and two together and say, maybe I should try something new after 25 to 35 new rehabs. But that never happened. I was just taking it hard enough that I need a new sponsor, that I need somebody who's going to be tough on me, different things like that. There was always an excuse, for why I kept on relapsing instead of actually looking at the root issues of why. I can't believe how much that is left out, that we're not taught. The word trauma is not in the book. The word trauma is not in the steps, but trauma accounts for over 80% of us and why we use. Obviously, neurodivergence is not mentioned in the book or the steps because I didn't know about it back then. And that's why it's so important to keep these things updated. This is what regular science does. This is what doctors do. They keep themselves updated with what the latest information is, and they change accordingly. AA says, no, we are not going to change. It is perfect as is. That's a red flag, Anyway, back to my story. I'm also so ADHD, if you can't tell. My head can be like a pinball machine sometimes, and I'm unmedicated on top of it too. So
I'm bouncing along with you, and I'm medicating with a coffee with MCT oil. Let's fucking go.
I love it. I'm feeling that natural high from yesterday, and we'll talk about that later. And also the whole mind altering thing and how much bullshit that was, anything mind altering is going to take us back to the pits of hell.
It turns out that the cucumber becomes a pickle, but can become a cucumber again, because we know about neuroplasticity a couple decades after Bill wrote the book, right? It's like neuroplasticity is the biggest, hello, it's not permanent.
Mm-hmm. And to get to that real quick, have I used mind-altering substances over the last 13 years that are incredibly healthy for me? Yes. And I know that might sound a little bit weird to some of you, but these mind-altering substances made me a better human being. They made me a kinder person. They made me a much more gentle person. They gave me a lot more empathy. They helped heal the main reasons why I was using in the first place. Nobody ever talked about this stuff, so all of this stuff, it shouldn't be foreign to me, but all of this stuff like childhood trauma, adverse childhood experiences, I had never heard any of this before. But you can imagine how mad I was when I came back here. I found a bag of H. This is right after my Ibogaine trip, guys. I was in Mexico. I came back to Las Vegas. And the first thing I did was I opened up a natural healing book because I knew that was going to be my path. Natural healing was going to be it. I opened up the book, and I had left some dope from 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, in there, and voila, there it is right in front of me. And I was coming off 4 years of Suboxone and a lot of Seroquel, 350 milligrams. And you're feeling detox. I don't care what anybody says about Ibogaine, you're gonna go through a detox. I felt, pretty hard detox for about 3 to 4 months or so afterwards. And when I found that bag, my usual programming is use it, think about it later. You're sick, you need a rest, you just need a little bit of sleep and you'll be okay. But then also what I was able to do was I could picture in my mind exactly what was going to happen. I knew what was going to happen and I couldn't bullshit myself anymore. That was the great part of Ibogaine. is I was no longer able to like gaslight myself, you know? And yeah, there's a lot changed because of Ibogaine, and that's why I opened up the first Ibogaine aftercare in America. I was seeing a huge problem with Ibogaine treatment. People were going down there for less than a week and taking this heavy psychedelic that is so profound. I mean, I saw that I was sexually traumatized at 3. That's pretty profound stuff. There should have been a psychologist right there for you to talk to. There isn't. This is the wild, wild west down there. So I started working at the clinic, and I was seeing people just go home and relapse right away. The majority were relapsing right away. And I'm thinking to myself, like, why have I had such success with this, and why aren't they? They needed time and space away from wherever they were going back to, whether it was toxic environment, toxic people, toxic job, toxic wife, toxic husband. They needed some time away, and they needed to learn. I knew a lot of this stuff, like meditation and some of these other things, but most people don't, you know, and the only exposure they've had to recovery is being asked to pray to the doorknob, you know? So I opened up a rehab, and that's what we did from 7 in the morning until 8 at night. It wasn't group after group after group after group, you know, because I know how boring that is, especially when you're neurodivergent. I don't want to sit in a group. And then I don't want to, you know, give them useless groups either. You know, like, I can't believe this really happened. I went to one rehab here locally, and I'm on, I think, my 3rd day of coming off opiates. I'm sick as a dog, and they force you to go to groups because of insurance. So they take out a big thing of white football helmets, okay, that are not painted, and they pass everybody gets their own football helmet. Then the little kiddie paints came out, you know, like the little kid paints that you get in elementary school, and they're like, okay, what we want you to do is think really hard, and then we want you to let us know what your emotion of the day is and paint it. And I'm like throwing up and about to defecate on myself, and I'm thinking, like, what is this doing to help my brain, my body, my nervous system, healing in any way whatsoever? I know some people have art therapy, but the majority of us are not. That's why when I opened up my rehab, I centered it around making people feel good. You know, other different ways of making them feel good, whether it was yoga, whether it was qigong, whether it was sound healing, drum circles, you know, and I know this sounds a little bit hippie-ish, but like people really reacted to this stuff after Ibogaine. And it's so important after psychedelic medicine that you are creating this very healing bubble for people to get well in, which is what I'm doing with the doctor now. We'll talk about that later. But back to my AA story is the day that I left, I'll never forget. I'll never forget it. I came back from Ibogaine, and you know how they tell you to read that book, New Pair of Glasses? That's what happened to me, but with AA. I had a new pair of glasses on, and I was seeing through it all. You know, the hypocrisy was honestly making me shake. The lying was making me shake. And I went to just men's groups. I knew myself, so like I'm not gonna go there, you know, and I just stayed with the men. I couldn't ignore what I was hearing anymore. The misogyny, you know, the referring to God as a man, you know. I'd love to just have one woman speak up and change the reading for the day. If, you know, you are forthcoming, she will help you throughout this whole process. Her power will be there for you, you know. She will, I mean, it's absolutely insane that for some reason in AA, God has a penis, you know. Anywhere else, no, but in AA, yeah, God definitely has a penis. His power will help you. The whole program is just like a lot of misogyny, even in the 12 and 12. You might not know this, okay? This one actually got me real upset, and I hit the book down at that point, and I had to speak out. We're reading the 12 and 12, and they start talking about how different the businesswoman alcoholic is than your average alcoholic. And I got a question, you know, like I got a question. I was like, is there any evidence on this, guys? Is there any way that we know that businesswomen alcoholics are worse, or do you think that we're just being misogynistic here and just trying to keep women at home, you know, and trying to scare them with, if you go to work, you're going to, you know, not be around anymore. Jails, institutions, death. Better to stay at home with the kids. Workplace is not for you. And yeah, people didn't like when I objected to that at all. You can imagine. Like, the one thing in AA is you have to agree with everything, and once you start questioning it, you are a problem. It's the same thing in I forgot what the word that they use it for Scientology. It's when somebody starts asking questions, they label them as, I forgot what it is, not non-compliant, but something like that. I'd look
Something
it up,
person. It's a something person.
Yes, you're nailing it. Something dysregulated or something problematic person, okay? And
Opposing person or
oh my God, now
suppressant person.
Suppressant.
It's like a suppressant person.
You're nailing it. Yeah, I was suppressant guy. Okay, and I'll tell you, I went along with everything. I always thought that I was the problem. And then my sponsor, who I'm looking at on the wall, DJ AM, overdosed and died. And he had the most solid program out of everybody that I knew. He had meetings at his own house. He sponsored many people. He worked the steps. He had a therapist outside of AA who was an AA therapist. This guy had so much childhood trauma, and it just was never treated properly. And if you don't know his story, what happened was he was traveling with Travis Barker from Blink-182 at that time, and he got into a plane crash. Everybody on the plane died except for him and Travis. Travis ended up pulling him out. He got third-degree burns. He went back on, he was in the ICU, obviously. They put him on OxyContin at the time and Xanax, you know, because he was having severe panic. And I believe that he would still be alive today if he didn't have all of that AA programming in his head that was telling him that the only way he's going to get better is rock bottom. Because he started taking a little bit more than usual. You know, I started getting the calls before he was leaving, you know, on a plane going, hey bro, I'm shaking so bad right now. And any advice? What he was doing was trying to justify taking the Xanax, which he is justified in taking, you know. I'm not promoting Xanax or anything like that, but it was meant to be used as a 911 emergency drug to avoid a panic attack. You know, sadly, doctors put people on it daily, and it's actually the worst detox that there is.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I believe he'd be alive today if it wasn't for AA. And what happened was that last night that he was alive, he called his sponsor and told him that he doesn't want to be here anymore and he's going to smoke crack. And his sponsor took a plane from LA to New York, went banging on his door, opened up. Adam said, I'll go to rehab in the morning, I promise. And his sponsor goes, okay, I'll be back in the morning to get you. Who is leaving somebody alone that is smoking crack on OxyContin 80s and Xanax? And people say to me all the time, well, how would you handle this? Taking my foot and knocking the door down. That's how I would have handled it. He was in crisis. That's what we call a 911 emergency situation. And this is what upsets me so much about AA. We have non-professionals acting in a professional manner.
You're supposed to call 911 if someone says they don't want to live. Like, this is, like, professionals have to report that.
I get very, very emotional when I'm talking about this story because I know in 2 weeks, I could have fixed everything that was going on with him. And I know that sounds like, oh, that's a bold statement. It's true. He always wanted to get better. He always wanted to heal. He just wasn't getting the right medicine. That's what.
I got sober a month after he died, and so I was very aware of him. I was at the rave for a very long time. I knew exactly who he was, and he died right a month before I got sober, and then his intervention show came out while I was in rehab. And so we all watched it every night, but we all watched it knowing that he's not alive anymore. You know, I'm sure it was even more brutal for you, but like,
it was brutal.
There are so many feels around this. I just have so much empathy for you about how fucked up this was.
I could feel it coming. You know, and then when I saw that show, it drove me nuts because I'm thinking to myself, like, he is the greatest guy ever. I love this person. He's my best friend. But he's not qualified to be going inside of these people's houses that are smoking crack right now and doing an intervention. And then the only thing that he had to say really on the show to these people is like, you ready to go to rehab? Are you ready and willing to do, just the same parroting talk, And I don't say this with any
12-step
disrespect.
work.
I love him. I say this because I'm angry, because he should be alive right now. I should be texting back and forth with him, laughing my ass off, but that's why I speak out against this.
A bigger point that I hear is that that's 12-step work. It sounds like he was doing 12-step work, and that there's a huge difference between professional help. It's not called outside help. That is a cult term to disqualify professionals.
Yes.
But when people say AA saves lives, I'm like, you have to also talk about the lives that it potentially takes. Mm-hmm. It's not fair.
Great point. When I opened up my rehab, and I was still in my spiritual narcissist phase, of I'm here to save the world, I would get all excited when somebody succeeded with what I was doing at my rehab. Another patient, that's a miracle, this and that, they have no desire to use, but everything is going great. And I would take the credit. I'd be like, look at the job that I'm doing, right? And then somebody died. And I had to re-examine everything that I thought, everything that I believed, and say to myself, if I'm going to take responsibility for their healing, I'm also responsible for them dying. Is that true? No. So what the truth is I am there to throw them out a life raft when they are drowning. It's up to them to cling on to it so I can pull them back in. That's the easiest way to describe it. It's definitely mutual, but it takes a lot of them, wanting to do this. And that's why with what we do now, we have such an enormous success rate. But if we, I talked about this with the doctor the other day, if we weren't counting the people that didn't want to be here, that were forced by their lover or their wife or their husband or their mom, I really believe that we would be at 100% success. I really do. Like when people come here and really want to get clean, and I can't believe I just used that word. That's still me deprogramming. People aren't clean and they aren't dirty. That's the most disgusting way to describe somebody who's going through addiction, that you're a dirty person. You know what I think of when I hear that? I think of the character on Charlie Brown, Pigpen, who's walking around and always has the dirt all over him.
Yeah.
Like, how could
I had
that?
a slight visceral reaction when you said the word clean. There's some of the words I find, like, even relapse I don't like. I just kind of feel like, ooh.
Yeah.
There's so many words that are just shame. They're just shame.
Shame-based. And I'm still deprogramming. And let me get into one story about the shame, okay? And how it absolutely crushed me. 2009, after AM died, I had 6 years away from the program because I was on methadone. And I just decided there's no use to go and everything like that. That's just AA getting in my head. I should have been going to AA or working some recovery at that whole time. But, they told me in AA that, if you're on methadone, you're dirty and this and that, just wait until you get clean. I'm like, all right. 6 years later, I showed up to my first meeting. Okay, so this is in 2006, right after I got clean. And I went to my first meeting in Las Vegas. I was so love bombed, What I remember, the first guy, he gave me a piece of his turkey club. He's like, looks like you could use a sandwich. I was 128 pounds. I'm 180 now, but I was 6 feet tall and 128 pounds. There were bones coming out of me. You could look like you'd need a sandwich. Why don't you come here and just give me a hug? And so much love bombing. I'm like, I finally have found the promised land of great people that are just like me and just want to. And I was sitting at the popular table for the first 2.5 months, all the popular table, especially it gets very cliquey. And, they'd welcome me in, put their arm around me and everything like that. We got you. I'm like, cool. About 2.5 months into it, I was cleaning up my apartment because I finally got a little bit of energy to do something. Like, you are wrecked after you come off like methadone and Suboxone. It stays with you for a long time. But I was finally starting to clean up my place. and I found 3/4 of a joint, right in the bathroom. And I'm like, I haven't slept. I haven't ate. Okay, so I smoked it. I ate a big turkey meal, and then I slept for the first time for 6 or 7 hours. I was so happy. But then I realized that I'm going to have to go and admit this to the guys tomorrow, and that's going to be tough. But they told me that honesty, I forgot what it is. Honesty is always, there's something about, our secrets will keep us sick. I didn't want to stay sick. I always wanted to get better, and I didn't want to hold any secrets from anybody. So
Confession culture.
Yeah. So I raised my hand. I go, guys, you're going to be upset, but I found a joint last night, and everyone's like, whoa. And I'm like, yeah, I smoked it, and I ended up eating a lot of turkey, and then I slept like a baby, and I woke up today, and I just realized I don't want that. I want the sober life. I feel really good like this. I feel really clear. I just want to move on. I'm not joking. I went out to I could tell things were different, but then when I went out to the parking lot afterwards, and I kept on walking up to these guys, hey, Jimmy, hey, Steve, hey, Scotty, they would literally turn their back to me. Their backs would turn like I didn't even exist. I'm even thinking about it right now. It's like bringing back a little bit of trauma, because this was my group that I relied on. These were my best friends. This was my support group, and they don't even want to talk to me now. AM was like, yeah, dude, you made a mistake. Not a big deal. Just get back on it, And I'm like, why is nobody talking to me? And this and that. He's like, they'll talk to you again soon, And I'm like, this is killing me. And I kept on texting them like, hey, it's a 911. Can you please call me back? Can you please call me back? Because I also have abandonment issues. And the pain was so great that day that I went from something that could have been a quick slip back on track, but the depression that I got from the meeting was so great that I ended up using that day and didn't stop, because that was killing the emotional pain that I was feeling from being ostracized by my new friends.
I've heard this story from other guests I've had on my show, that this is exactly what happens, and the way that they're treated inside AA is actually what kicks off another thing because of their abandonment trauma. I wish this wasn't your story. This is a very, very, very common thing.
I know it is.
It just like...
Here's the thing is like, and I'm not trying to be harsh here, but people are dying every day over this, over bad information. Every single day. To get back to the AM story, anyway, he died 2009. And I sent you this article. Right after he died, I got a call from my new sponsor who said, you got to sit down. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, just be prepared for some bad news. I'm like, what could be worse than losing Adam? And he said, well, your friend Sarah was shot in the back by her new boyfriend that she met at an AA. He had long-term sobriety. He was 10 years off alcohol or whatever it was, but had serious jealousy issues. And after a meeting, I guess they got into an argument or something at home, and he just took out the gun and he shot her in the back while she wasn't even looking at him. He just shot her in the back and then did himself in. So it was a murder-suicide. And this happened right around the same exact time that Adam died. And it's like all of a sudden I was struck by a hammer. And obviously ended up using. And I'll never forget this. I went in high also to her funeral. And all my AA people, come, we saved a seat for you, because they know that I brought her in. She worked with me at Wynn. And she was an executive at Wynn. And she should be alive today. But again, we're not warned of any of these things. We're not warned that we're in a meeting with possible sex offenders, with predators, with rapists. This is not a safe space for women. It just isn't. Anyway, so she died. I went to the funeral. AA people waved me in. And I was about 12 people in. My seat was in the middle. There was about 12 people I had to go through. Every single person said the exact same thing to me as I was walking by. Hey, Justin, I'm so sorry, but she died so you could live. Hey, Justin, Sarah died so you could live, right? 12 people in a row saying the exact same thing, and I'm already crushed with a hammer. I actually thought about ending it all that day, just because I'm like, what the hell? I'm involved with this group, and I'm watching the closest people around me die, and nobody wants to even acknowledge it. When I would bring it up, they'd be like, that's an outside issue. Outside issue. Sarah should be alive today. And people wonder why, and I see it all the time with you. Why are you talking bad about a group that helps millions of people? What they don't mention is that there's no more than a 5% success rate. And then they'll bring out the Cochrane review and be like, look. And it's so easily debunked, but they don't even want to try to debunk it. They just want that information. I'll never forget, right after Sarah died was the first time that I looked up on Google, is AA a success for most people? And a whole treasure trove of information came out from professionals that were talking about this, not from Joe Schmo or anything like that, but psychologists from Psychology Today, respected journalists, things like that. And I'm reading these articles and I'm like, holy shit, I am in a cult, And it seems like a death cult because everybody around me is dying. And what they told me the first day was, make sure you get a suit, newcomer. I'm like, why? You're going to be going to more funerals than you ever have. I'm like, are you sure I'm in the right place here? I don't know. I believe that if you want help, you should be receiving the best help possible. The best medicine possible, the best psychology possible, up-to-date theories for the year 2026. When we go to a doctor's office and we have an infection, they aren't coming into the office with a big jar of leeches and saying, lie down, Mr. Hoffman, we're going to put some leeches on you now. They don't do that. Or they don't have people holding you down so they can saw your leg off with a bone saw, we invented antibiotics. When I go into my car, I start it up and I'm able to get 22 miles a gallon. I'm not driving a Ford Model T anymore that I have to crank up and can only go 5 miles an hour. Technology has changed.
Right.
Things change. AA hasn't changed one bit. And when they did change, they changed one word about 4 or 5 years ago. Instead of the men and women of AA, they said the people of AA. They changed it to people. And members lost their minds over it, calling it woke AA, refusing to ever come back. And imagine if someone said, hey, maybe it's time to change, oh my God, now I'm forgetting all these, the wives chapter.
Or the wives.
For the wives. Maybe it's time to change that, guys. Considering that women have alcohol issues too, and aren't just here to be our supporters.
It's so funny. I always think about President Garfield, American president who was assassinated like a long time ago. And this was before germ theory was accepted as like real. And so the doctor who in theory would have been one of the best doctors at the time because he's treating the president of the country,
sure,
dug in with his bare hands, no gloves, to try to find the bullet and pull it out of him. And he died of sepsis, surprise, surprise, a couple of months later. So this is the leader of the country, and they knew about this germ thing. But so we don't do that anymore. If the president of the country is shot, no one's going to be reaching in with their bare, unwashed hands, looking around for a bullet and hoping that the president lives. You know what I mean? But we're still doing that with addiction recovery. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what's so sad to me is that over 80% of our rehabs use this and use it only. And I had to ask myself, why? Do they really believe that it's helping people? No.
Do they?
No. What they are thinking, and this is coming from a rehab owner, I know this, it's cheap. You don't have to pay for it. 3 people will come in every single night and give you a group. That's a lot cheaper than me paying for a yoga instructor, a sound healer, a meditation expert, a qigong worker. Yeah, you're
because
not
the
paying.
free labor exploitation, you don't have to pay for the people who are facilitating it, but also that now you have repeat customers. Can we say that part?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I'm not a conspiracy guy, but it's hard to think that anything else is happening when they are knowingly using a program that can't get more than 5% clean. 100 people walk into a meeting and 95 aren't going to make a year. Those are AA's numbers. That's not just like something that I'm digging up. Those are AA's numbers. Yeah, it's time for a change. It's time for a change. And I think that, you know what, thank God you're doing what you're doing, because you're bringing such an important issue to light. What you're doing is actually saving lives. I know you're going to hear the men, it's always boomer men, with the gray beards on the same picture in the background and everything, telling you, I can't even believe how misogynistic they are to you. I can't believe how they treat you. I can't believe the words that they say. There's that instinctual part of me that wants to like jump through the computer and be like, oh, now what? But that's not me. I'm full of peace.
One of my greatest hopes is just to have transparency around addiction recovery, the entire journey, including leaving 12-step if you ended up in 12-step and what that's like, and to spark conversations where people can share their honest thoughts and not host dogmatic only conversations.
Yeah.
Like if AA people want to come and share their thoughts, fine, but this is about everybody sharing their thoughts. And what is the truth? What does modern science say? What are we learning? And this thing that happened yesterday on my Facebook page, this lady actually went live to talk about it. She was saying that because I said that I wish I would have, or if I could give myself 2009 self when I got sober advice, I would say do naltrexone because it was approved for AUD in 1994 in the US by the FDA, that I would have done naltrexone. And in fact, I would have done it in 1999 when I knew I had a problem with alcohol, because taking a pill to make my alcohol most likely have less consequences for me and drink less was an easier ask than abstinence. So I would have done that. And then her reply is that what I'm saying is dangerous, but then on top of that, all the other AA members that are replying, they have this idea in their head that to me is so wrong and harmful, that you can't use you can't use drugs to get sober. And where did this idea come from, that you can't use medication to get better? Like, what are you even talking about?
Yes.
God isn't the answer to everything. Like, could you imagine if you had cancer or you were a gunshot and they said God's the answer? It's like
God's the answer, but then you say back to them, I don't believe in God. Well, that's okay. Just over there, that drain pipe, start praying to it. Pray to the drain pipe, and you're hopefully things will work out.
Yeah, and really what I'm saying is I wish that addiction recovery was more like chemo, or AA was more like chemo, where you're like, look, it's kind of brutal and it might mess you up a little bit in these predictable ways, but it might actually save your life too. You might actually really get benefit from it. So here's the pros and the cons, you decide, right? Like informed consent.
That's never happened. When I'd lost count of the rehabs that I went to, because they all were the same thing to me. 25 to 35, and not one place had anything different to say. And not one place had anything negative to say about it. Because I always questioned it from day one when I walked in and I'm holding hands and saying the Lord's Prayer. And I said to my cousin, I was like, you didn't tell me this is a religious program? He's like, it's not. And I'm like,
it's the Lord's Prayer.
I'm saying, this is from the Bible, and then he explained to me.
I offer my, totally, our daily bread. I learned the religious prayers that I know. I learned them in a church basement in AA. Yeah. That's where I learned the Lord's Prayer. And
this is where it's also, I feel like it's a back door to one religion, one specific religion. I'm Jewish, and I remember calling my mom. I went to a 2-month rehab, and I remember calling my mom after church, because I went to church. I was bored, so I went with everybody to church. I wasn't going to be the only guy at the rehab, so I'd go to church. I'm like, Mom, I took communion today, and she's like, what? And I'm like, yeah, I'm really I'm feeling the power of Jesus. And she's like, when are you coming home? She knew that this is something is weird is really going on. She's like, you're not supposed to be doing that. And I'm like, why? It's, it's spiritual. And my God, I can't even believe the shit that I actually fell for. I look back at it now, and it what it resembles is dating a narcissist. That's what it is. Leaving is, like leaving a narcissist. You're never going to make it without me. You're nothing without me. Without me, there's nothing but jails, institutions, and death. Like you're breaking up with a narcissist. That's really what's going on. And for anybody out there that thinks if they leave, that they're going to relapse just because they heard that in the meetings, I'm here to tell you that the data is not on their side. And I would also implore to please look into healing these underlying issues of why we're using in the first place. For the majority of us, it's depression, it's anxiety, it's PTSD, it's ACEs, bipolar, it's neurodivergence, it's being lonely, That's another thing we don't talk about too. Like I think AA could be great for community connection, support from others if they weren't giving so much misinformation. But I don't know. Yeah, I agree with you. I just wish somebody gave an opposing side, but nobody did at that time. There was no other show in town. The only place that actually gave an opposing side was Passages in Malibu. And we would go off because he was the arch enemy to all of us. At least once a day, someone would be like, maybe we could be like the guy from Passages and just cure it. And I'm like thinking, what's it? Oh, to get back on the Passages thing. Right after I did Ibogaine, no TV, nothing for a full day, and I'm wired out of my mind, and he's like, read a book. So I went and I saw all the books that he had at the Ibogaine clinic, and the first one that stuck out to me was The Cure for Addiction to Alcoholism from Passages. And I'm like, oh my God, my enemy. And then I'm like, I need to drop that. The psychedelic started talking to me right away. It's like, this is not your enemy. This is somebody with a different view. See what he has to say. I read that book. It was one of the best books that I've ever read on recovery. Highly intelligent. He had quite a story. It's amazing that dude's even alive. And yes, they are outrageously priced and everything like that, but some people want that level of luxury when they go to a rehab, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you have the money, enjoy, But the fact that he came out and said that there's a cure really flipped them out. I refer to myself as cured. I do not even say ex-addict anymore. I'm someone who had an issue, I healed it the proper way, and I'm moving on with life.
Yep. I don't even say addict anymore or alcoholic. No. I don't even believe in any of that because of what it means in society.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just like I that part of me is gone. That part of me is dead. And it's not coming back. And people will say, well, how do you know that? Well, I think I have a good idea. After I was in the ER in the trauma unit, and they had to give me morphine and Dilaudid at the same time, so I was expecting what I really thought was going to happen is my allergy was going to kick in, and I'm not going to be able to stop until I finally hit rock bottom and go back to rehab again. Reality was I was itching, and I started to get really moody. They gave me a month of Percocet to take home for broken ribs. And I lasted a day and a half, and that was it. I was so moody. The biggest part of it that I just couldn't deal with was I couldn't go to the bathroom the next day. That's a deal breaker right there for me. I'm like, this is not happening anymore. So I lasted about a day and a half. And they, all my AA programming would have said, this is going to be relapse. This is what we do. If we take one, we can't stop. It's okay. The guys down at the meeting said that's what happens, and it's just happening, so it's okay. No, it isn't.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't okay. And, one thing that I discovered that day is I fell out of love with my drug of choice. I used to have a love relationship with heroin. And that was the first day that I realized I'm breaking up with you, for good. This is not enjoyable for me anymore. This is not covering up the trauma that I once had in the back of my head. This is not helping me with the neurodivergence. It's actually making everything so much worse. And I realized that day I'm cured. And some people say, oh, that's real cocky. We got to take it one day at a time. No, we don't. I think that's a ridiculous theory, one day at a time. I think if you believe something, it's going to come true. That's one thing I had to do. When I came home, I realized I had to deprogram all these thoughts about myself. I would sit in the mirror in the morning and say, you are a powerful person, capable of great change. And I believed it. I believed it. I didn't feel powerless anymore. I felt like a powerful beast at that point. Like and I approached my recovery like that. It wasn't going to meetings all day, but I really got into yoga. I really got into running. I really got into hiking. All these different things came up, but I just had to, being ADD, we have to set a schedule for ourselves and have a routine going. I just had to change my routine to something really, really positive. And I worked my ass off for those first 2 years before I opened up my rehab. And I was so scared to take a psychedelic because I still believed in the mind-altering theory, that at any time you take anything mind-altering, you're going to end up at rock bottom again. It took about 3 or 4 months of me meditating and finally realizing that, hey, a psychedelic just cured me of what no rehab could do. Why am I thinking that this is going to take me back? Mushrooms have only had a positive experience in my life. So I took them and I ended up, 5 hours of hiking. And when I came down off the mountain, the last thing on my mind was going to a trap house and injecting some heroin into my arm and then smoking crack. That's not where I was at. And that's not what the psychedelics were telling me. They were telling me the exact opposite. They were telling me that you're going to help a lot of people one day from now. But it told me for these 2 years, this is your boot camp and you're going to learn everything you need to learn. And lo and behold, I can't make this up because I'm so ADD, I would never be able to open up my own rehab. A guy called me over to his house with Tashar, who I was dating, and was like, hey, what do you think about my house here? Beautiful mansion. I'm like, nice. He's like, what do you think of doing for other people what you did for my son? I was going to turn it into a cam girl house, but I'm thinking that you could probably do a lot more with this than me. And I'm like, okay, this is that sign,
Like the chills. Ooh.
Yeah, it's really strange. After I did Ibogaine and I set my intention. My intention was very clear. If this works for me, I will be a vessel, and I will do this with, integrity, with morals, and never make it about money. Even though, some people will think that, rehab should be free, that can't happen. Sadly, we have to pay for some of these things. But never make it all about money or anything like that, and have integrity and do everything right that was done wrong to you. When I came out of rehab, I had 2 choices. I could either do what was done to me, to others, abusive, call them names, tell them that they're never going to make it, that they're going to end up in jail, or do the opposite and show them love and compassion, empathy, and real solutions. That's the most important thing.
There's that line in the big book that's like, God doing for us what we couldn't do for ourselves, right? It came into my head when you were talking. It was like psychedelics did for you what you couldn't do for yourself. They rewired your brain.
Yeah. And some can even say God was working through those psychedelics. I was a devout atheist before I did psychedelics. Even all those years of AA, I still was atheist, even going to church and everything like that. Still atheist. You're not going to sell me on a supreme being or whatever. I do psychedelics, and now I believe in God. I pray on a daily basis. One thing I don't do is tell the patients that I'm working with that this is what you have to do. Because I know people have religious trauma. So why am I going to shove something in their face that has traumatized them already? Nuts. And when I say patients, guys, what I'm doing now, I closed the Ibogaine Aftercare about 7 years ago for many reasons. I had to be treated for CPTSD because I made the huge, crucial mistake of living in the rehab with the patients, giving up my own home and living in the rehab. And every time I would try to hire somebody to take my position, they weren't qualified. Or they would end up using drugs within a week, or they'd be bringing a girl up there to the main room, and I'm like, Oh my God, almost every single time. And so the message I got was, if you want this done correct, you need to do it. So I lived in the rehab and experienced so much trauma, from about 300 people afterwards. I came home one night to a guy who was in the driveway. I came home at 3:30 in the morning because I was still DJing on top of all this. He was standing in the driveway like Michael Myers with a huge dagger, And I'm like, oh, fuck, I just wanted to go to bed. I was like, I guess that's not going to happen. And walked up, I'm like, hey, what's going on? Expecting, to be cut. And he's like, Justin, I got to be honest with you. I got to take everybody's heart that's in the house and remove it. And I'm like, okay, I get it. And he's like, but you're going to like this. I don't want to kill you. I can see that you're a good person. I go, wow. I said, thanks so much, Johnny. I appreciate that. I don't have experience with dealing with things like this, but for some reason, I had to learn really, really quickly. I didn't have experience with schizoaffective people, with narcissists, with antisocial personality disorder. I was about to say sociopath, but I know better. Cluster B personalities, bipolar, all of these things were new to me. And the spiritual narcissist side of me was saying, I can take this on. With 2 years of sobriety and doing some psychedelics, I can now handle somebody who's a narcissist or a sociopath, no problem. And what I really, I was definitely put in my place during that time. And I realized, that medications do serve a purpose, and that someone might benefit from something different. I had my first bipolar patient who was going through a manic episode. And I forgot what he was demanding. It was something like mushrooms. He's like, just give me like a good couple grams of mushrooms. And I'm like, no. I took him to the ER and they stabilized him on lithium. And I saw the difference right there. And I'm like, I can't believe I've been putting these drugs down that serve a purpose. Where did that come from? I know where it came from. AA, because every time I would speak about using antidepressants or anxiety medicine or ADD medicine, instant no, that'll cut you off from the light. You don't want that.
Right, the sunlight of the spirit.
This is how people die. When you're telling them to get off their medication that is saving their lives and to just give that medication away for prayer, and apologizing to everybody you've ever wronged or understanding your part. That was probably the grossest thing that ever happened to me, is when I revealed that I was sexually assaulted to a sponsor. And he said to me, what was your part? And my response was, well, I was wearing really tight Pampers that day, and I was strutting my stuff around and asking for it. And he's like, that's not funny. I go, it actually is. I was like, I can't believe I'm actually trusting therapy like this with you. And he's like, well, I guess we call it a day. I go, yep, we're done. And that was it. This is why you don't have non-professionals working in a professional manner. A professional is not going to ask somebody who was raped what their part was.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
I took care of a woman who was in the program for 44 years, and she had me detox her. And part of it, like on day 2 or day 3, she was hysterically crying. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I keep on reliving the gang rape that happened to me. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't know about that. I'm so sorry. Gave her a hug. And she said to me, oh, don't be sorry. It's my fault. I shouldn't have been looking for drugs that day. For 44 years, she's been believing this, that it's her fault and that she played a part. Let me make it really clear for everybody out there. No one plays a part in rape. It's a violent act. No one is asking for this. If you are a sponsor in AA and someone does bring up some sexual trauma or some PTSD that is way above your pay grade, the last thing you want to do is ask them what their part was. So please don't do that.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Wow.
Yeah. So what?
It's really common too. I was made to feel like I had to, to survive, because that's the threats that are loaded into the steps. I was made to feel like I had to call somebody in relationship to having been raped, and I did. And now I am horrified that I did that. And that was one of the hardest pieces for me about deprogramming, was making peace with how mortifying that is now that I actually called and had a 30-minute phone conversation with somebody around it and apologizing for my part. And I'm like it, and I only share that not because it still bothers me, although it feels gross when I say it, is because I know how common it is. And I know how liberating it is for other people, because it's not, it's a lot of us, it's the men too, face something like that, where we're made to feel like when we were actually genuinely victimized, that somehow it was our fault, and that some of us were made to make amends about it or somehow claim our part. It's so brutal. And I just really feel for anybody who's going through that emotional experience right now, and healing that piece of what the indoctrination or the ideology can do. Because to me, it's not like it's the sponsor's fault even so much. It's like it's the blind leading the blind. They're trained in AA to, now you look at your fault and everything. Yeah. So it's hard to blame people when it's like that's the system. It's the system, and it's like invisible. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because they're good people. A lot of the people who might be saying that could also still be good people. Oh yeah. But they're just in an ideology where they can't see straight, and they're out of their element. They shouldn't be even having this conversation, let alone be giving traumatic advice on it.
Thank you, thank you. This needs to be screamed with capital letters. Okay, that yes, it's absolutely insane. They should never be having that conversation. That's for professionals. That is. And you could do a lot. You could re-traumatize somebody with that kind of language and ideas and putting it into their heads. I couldn't believe this poor woman, 44 years of thinking that she's responsible. No wonder why she still went back to using. She wants to cover that pain up still. And what's really sad to me is I suffered with opioid use disorder for 17 years. 17 years of my life because of basically that program. And yes, I am blaming that program for keeping us in the dark about real cures. That 17 years, with everything that I now know, could have been wrapped up in 17 days. With everything that I now know, just like that, it could have been healed, cured, moved on with life. But instead, I was told that I have a permanent disease, a fatal disease. And when you're neurodivergent, you take things literally, I'm like, oh my God.
And a lot of us are.
If you're neurodivergent, well, 80% of us are using some kind of substance. 80%. That's a lot. So the majority of people in AA probably have some kind of neurodivergency. And that's why it was so strange to me. I actually had a sponsor say to me, hey, he was my new sponsor. He's like, hey, dude, I think you should listen a little bit more until you pick up on our lingo. Because when you're neurodivergent, you talk how you talk, I'm not looking to parrot what another person said to sound good, or be performative for everybody. I don't know. Anyway.
Totally. So I was scrolling your TikTok earlier today, watching some of your more recent TikTok videos. I'll link your TikTok below for anybody who wants to come vibe. And you said something that I thought was really interesting, and I wondered if you could share more about it. You said, sure, alcohol is the easiest substance to detox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Here's the thing: is in traditional rehab, alcohol is not the easiest to detox. It can be fatal. It can kill you, okay? And don't let anybody tell you different. Please don't ever cold turkey alcohol. It is one of the most dangerous drugs out there. Now, with what we do, for some reason, it is by far the easiest drug for us to detox people off of. It just seems to wash out right away. The majority of our alcohol patients never even see mild symptoms.
On your TikToks, you were talking about ketamine and NAD+.
Yeah.
and how it can help with depression, anxiety, cravings, and PTSD. So that's super interesting to me and newish to me. I've read a lot of, a couple of years ago, I deep dove into, I guess 3 years ago, into the relationship between alcohol use disorder and ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And it seemed fascinating to me. And it was definitely, it's the number 2 way that I would go, or number 1, depending upon, I guess, how much money I had, what was near me, or whatever. But I wanted to figure out when I left AA, if I had to get sober again, if I started drinking again and it became a problem again, how would I get sober again? That's not 12th step. And so one of them would be Sinclair method. And then another one was ketamine was my choice, because I read in the data, and I'm a big data geek, that with a certain kind of specific ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, it's going to rewire your brain, and the outcomes are so much better than, like, I don't remember what those studies compared it to because that was a couple years ago, but I was incredibly impressed.
Psychedelics are great, but they are not for everybody at all, especially if you have schizoaffective, especially if you're bipolar and might be in the manic phase at that point. It's a big, big no. Just do your research, be careful. But even Bill W. knew the power of psychedelics. You're never going to hear that in a meeting. Not once did I ever hear in a meeting that after 20 years of Bill W. having clinical depression, he took LSD 4 or 5 times and it cured him. And it cured him to the point that he went to the board and he wanted to incorporate this into the steps. They laughed and threw him out of the room. Nuts. Now, when it comes to what we're doing, what we're actually doing is Bill W.'s fantasy detox. What he would have done if this was around then. NAD plus is, well, I'm sorry, I'm going to go back. Bill W. conducted clinical niacin trials using niacin to get people off alcohol. And that's what he actually wanted to be remembered for. What niacin is doing is it is raising your NAD plus levels that are in your body already. The thing is, though, you have to give high amounts of niacin. It's very uncomfortable. And now, I think it was like 25 years ago, we finally synthesized NAD+. So we no longer have to use a precursor in order to raise the NAD levels in the body. So we are flooding your body with NAD+, and that's essentially turning your cells on, giving them a turbocharge, and your body starts fighting off the detox on its own. It's actually, I can't believe that we're the first to do this. Second, we're giving you ketamine for multiple reasons. One, we're giving you such a high dose of NAD plus that no one else gives. We give about 1,500 milligrams. Most places are at 250, 500 maybe. We give 1,500. And we're able to do that because of the ketamine. Second, the ketamine is working on your depression. It's working on your anxiety. It's working on PTSD, adverse childhood experiences, bipolar, and most important, your cravings. If you watch some of my videos, what you're going to see is patients coming in, and when we say 1 out of 10, where your cravings at 11.5 first day, by the second day, they're usually down to a 2 or 3. By the time that they leave, they're usually down to a 0. I mean, I really believe that what the doctor and I have come up with, and I know this is a bold statement, but I really believe this, what we come up with is one of the greatest advancements in substance use disorder treatment. And I feel like in a way we have cracked the code and are able to give people mild to moderate symptoms instead of severe symptoms that you would see at a traditional rehab. And also, we're looking at this very different. Instead of just treating the symptoms like they do in rehab, hey, I got my belly aching, here you go, have a Bentyl. My legs, have a baclofen. We're treating your cells. We're treating your nervous system. We're treating your brain. And I ask of you, if you are thinking about going to a rehab or a detox, when you call them, ask them very specifically, what are you doing to heal my brain? What are you doing to regulate my nervous system? What are you doing for cellular health? Since I've beaten mine to a pulp. Then, what are you doing to prevent me from relapsing by addressing my depression, anxiety, trauma, ACEs, and the cravings? And if they don't have an answer for you right away, hang up. It's a red flag. Because every rehab right now should be addressing the brain and the nervous system. When they aren't, to me, it's a red flag. So what are we doing? We're telling everybody to just pray instead of actually using real science. You know, we're in the year 2026. It's not 1939 anymore, you know, and we've grown. We know a lot more now. Yeah. Kirsten, you have no idea how important what you're doing is. It really is. And I'd be more into it if I wasn't doing what I'm doing, just because it means so much to me. To not steer people away from it, that's not what my goal is. My goal is just to inform them. That's it. Just inform them before they walk into the rooms. Say, hey, this is the success rate. Hey, if you're a woman, there's sex offenders in these rooms. Be very careful. Do not give your number out to anybody. You know, there's so many different things I would be saying to these people before they go in. You do not have a disease. You are not going to have a permanent disease for the rest of your life. You can go back to being a cucumber once you turn into a pickle. You know, there's so much misinformation, and you're not once an addict, always an addict. What kind of shit is that? It's so condescending too, to even say to us that we are not capable of change. None of it ever sat right with me, but when you keep on relapsing over and over and over, you finally submit. And you're like, okay, I'll go every day. I'll go 3 times a day. I just don't want to sit in that jail cell again, throwing up on myself. You know, insane.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why addiction can get so bad for some people is because the mainstream narrative is still AA ideology. It's what's in all the movies. It's what's in all the TV shows. This idea that meetings and church basements and prayer is how you address alcohol addiction. It's what's mainstream. I don't see I don't see smart, when I turn on Netflix, I don't see smart meetings. I don't see non-meeting ways to get sober. I see AA ways to get sober. So it's always, we're indoctrinated as a culture, not just in America, but globally, although it's different outside of America in some countries. But we're not given all the options, and there isn't one way. And even when people say all the time, like in the comments and stuff, it's a disease, it's dangerous if you say it's not a disease, I'm like, that's a theory. Like, literally, it's a theory that not everybody believes. I understand you believe it, but there's no capacity when you're in that indoctrination to realize that you're in an ideology, that these are ideas, not facts, and other people have other ideas. And science also might disprove some of those ideas. You know, and let's just be honest about everything. Yes. And then, you know what? We all have intuition. We're individuals. That's what really gets me. We're individuals, and we have our intuition. Our bodies are like pendulums, where sometimes we know what's for us and what's not for us. So somebody might be listening to this, for example, and say, you know what? Ketamine feels right in my body for me. Let me go research it. Some people might say, oh, hell no. Like, I'm into like a religious program because whatever reason, or I'm into smart, or I don't know, but there's something in us that's going to be helping to guide us places. I knew that I didn't want Alcoholics Anonymous well before I ever went. So I paid extra to go to a Malibu special fancy pants rehab because it was the only non-12-step one my friend could find when I needed to go. You know, and then, but I got there and AA had already infiltrated that, they staffed the place, AA members. So they were already telling me about disease and stuff. So I couldn't even escape it. It was like inevitable, especially in 2009, in September 2009, it was inevitable that the force field of AA was stronger then than it is now. Now, because now we have Instagram and TikTok, which we didn't have. People are being honest about things now on, you know, individuals like you, me, and everybody, you know, other people too. So it's like, there's more chances now or more ways to figure out that there's more options on the table, but there is not one size fits all, and that shouldn't be harmful or dangerous to say.
No, not at all. And even with what we do, you know, it's not for everybody. It's not, you know, especially, well, the only person that I would definitely say this is not a good idea is when a mom calls me and is talking about getting little Johnny into my place, and then when I say, where's little Johnny, you know, he doesn't want to talk on the phone to you. I'm like, okay, that's telling me everything about what's going to happen while he's here, and I just can't take your money like that. We're burning your money.
Yeah.
That's it. When little Johnny is ready, have him call me, And I hate that idea of like, oh, you have to be ready and willing and blah, blah, blah. But it kind of is true, Like if you're not ready to like change, most likely you're not going.
I haven't had a drink since before I went to AA. My last drink was September 28th, 2009. The next day I went to rehab, and then I went to AA when I got out of rehab. So I haven't had a drink since AA. So it's not, but I don't look at it as AA worked for me, air quotes, right? I look at it as when I was ready to quit, when I thought abstinence was the only way to actually solve my alcohol problem, which now I know that there were other ways like Sinclair method or
Sure.
psychedelics or whatever. But when I thought abstinence was the only available choice and I was ready to make a change, that's when I paid for rehab. That's when I went to AA. I had already decided I was done. I would have got help sooner if I knew there was other options on the table besides abstinence. Because who wants to give up drinking when it's,
I get it. And you know what? I haven't gone the complete abstinence route, because I left that AA programming. And there's been nights where I'll go out for dinner with friends or with my girlfriend and have a drink with dinner. And I have never taken it further than that. I don't want to take it further than that. I enjoy a beer with a steak. Great, and we're leaving it at that. People, if I was in AA, I would hear over and over how I'm on a slippery slope. No, I'm not, because I have healed these reasons why I would want to be inebriated in the first place. There's no part of me whatsoever. Like when it comes to substances, I'm not scared of them the way that I was before. Before I really believed that inanimate objects were cunning, baffling, and powerful. What? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. The drugs and the alcohol are not the problem. We are. We're the problem. I wish I could. If anybody out there is listening and you are seeing yourself as a failure because you didn't make it in rehab or you didn't make it in AA, I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. You're fine. Those programs and those rehabs have such abysmal success rates that for you to make it would be, going against the odds. So don't beat yourself up. There's plenty of other options out there. Thank God for ChatGPT. You could even just punch in, hey, what are some great alternatives to a 12-step rehab or a detox? It's shocking that these places are still doing this, but like I said before, it's money, It's really like a money issue. It's free, and they don't have to pay for it. And not only that, but they have I used to see this all the time. People that don't even work there come in and teach groups. So now they're saving on employees and workers. Now you don't have to pay workers because you have AA volunteers coming in and running a group. The last group that I remember was they were teaching us about the food pyramid from the 1970s and how important our daily dairy is and all this and sugars. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I don't think I ever remember a group that I went to at a rehab that was like a life-changing group for me, where I was like, aha, I get it now. And what's really sad is like not one of these rehabs that I went to ever talked about trauma, ever talked about adverse childhood experiences, ever even talked about getting on MATs. When I would ask about that, like, hey, don't you think it's a good idea that I maybe get on the Suboxone stuff and give myself a bridge? They're like, you're just on another drug. A drug is a drug is a drug. I look back now and I'm like, I can't believe I was even listening to these people that aren't even educated on this subject. They've been educated by a blue book from the 30s. That's their knowledge of addiction. And yet they're running these rehabs and running these groups and, putting it out there for everybody else, and just misinformation spreads and spreads and spreads. And you are right about the AA movies and how much it's part of society. Every single rehab I went to has a VCR, okay? And one of the tapes that they always have is 28 Days with Sandra Bullock, which is almost like a required viewing 2 or 3 times while you're there, and Clean and Sober with Michael Keaton. both of them. Like try to sit through either one of those now. You'll have your head on your face, and just being like, wow, a part of me is like really sad that I fell for it, but I'm taking that and helping others, and a lot of these people say, what are you doing today to help others? What you're doing is you're informing them of staying away from a toxic religious cult. That's what you're doing. That's your purpose right now. That's fine. What I'm doing is I'm detoxing people, but like the one thing I also realize is I do not need to be in service for the rest of my life. I am not indebted. The last time I actually did a psychedelic trip, which I work with the Toad twice a year. And the last time I did it, it told me that you've paid back plenty. You're free. You don't owe anything. Because I always had that in my head, is that, no, I'm giving back. I got to give back. I got to give back what was once freely given to me, I do this now just because I love it, and I love watching people come to life. And I love seeing that what we're doing and how it works. People come into us looking like death. And 1 week later, they have blood in their face. They look completely like they've changed into different people. NAD was originally developed for anti-aging reasons. That's what it was used for. And then they realized that there's so many more medical reasons to use it. And yeah, that's where we're at. So I'm absolutely obsessed with NAD. I take it every single day for myself. I use a stack that I recommend all the time. I use TMG. I use NAC. I use True Niagen, which is called NR. This is not NAD+, but this is a precursor that boosts your natural NAD+ levels. So I use this. I use real NAD, that's sublingual, NR, TMG, NAC, and L-theanine for anxiety issues. And I've been good. I've been off prescriptions for 13 years now, and my drug of choice will be 13 years in 20 days, I think it is, or something like that. So, yeah, it seems like I blossomed as a human being once I left. And it wasn't poor me, I got a disease, I'm never going to get better, to let's do something. I was so mad when I came back here after I did Ibogaine. I was just mad at the system. I was mad at pharma, I was mad at AA, I was mad at the rehab system. And instead of just typing away on Facebook about how angry I am, I decided to actually do something about it. And I have, over the last 13 years, I've helped an enormous amount of people reclaim their power. I think that's one of the biggest core reasons behind using psychedelics, is to taking back your power. That's all. And that's it. Are they something that I still work with all the time? No, I don't. And one thing, guys, I do not enjoy a psychedelic trip. I don't enjoy doing ketamine at all. Like, this is not for me. I don't want a giant mirror held up to my face and pointing out everything that's wrong with me. Okay, but that's what happens, and that's how we heal. Sometimes we see things that might be uncomfortable, but that's how we heal. Depression might come to the surface, but it's leaving you. Anxiety might come to the surface, but it's leaving you. Trauma might come to the surface and revisit, but it's leaving you. And that's what makes them, such a difference compared to what we're doing now. Right now, the doctor and I, he says it's about 70 to 80% success rate. Regular rehab is about 5 to 15. And like I called the doctor out the other day, I said, well, hold on about the 70, 80%. What if we weren't talking about the people that were kind of forced to be here? He's like, oh, then close to 100. That's incredible. And that's always been my goal, is for when someone comes and seeks out help, that we give them the best help available. The latest science, the latest medicine, the latest technology. People have a right, to be treated decent, and to be treated with care and empathy and love. You know how many times I heard, just, you'll be fine, just sleep it off. Just sleep, you'll be fine. I can't sleep. You'll be fine, just deal with it. Nobody said the easier, softer way works. That's another thing I learned in AA, that the easier, softer way is a bad thing. I don't want anybody to ever think that. I want, if you can have an easier detox, get it. Why should you suffer? That's another AA mentality, is that we should suffer so we don't repeat it again. I suffered many, many times, and I kept on repeating it over and over, so that didn't actually work. Suffering didn't work for me. All it did was keep me out of rehab a little bit longer, and that's it.
This is so fascinating. I'm curious, what was your deprogramming journey like? How did you start to unravel AA ideology? Oh my God, just like going to really Google and started reading article after article after article about it and about the harm that it causes. The Orange Papers was a huge, huge help. The movie The Business of Recovery was amazing. That is probably the best documentary that I've seen done on the subject. And it was eye-opening too. You see these people that are running these rehabs that are just kind of clueless in a way. Like the director was asking them like intelligent questions, and he was just saying, well, they got to pray, without any like real answers. It's sad. It's a $38 billion business. And people really believe that they need these 1, 2, 3 month programs, in order to get better, and riding horses and all these other things in order, another person, someone told me last night on my live, hey, I'm going into rehab for 3 months. And I'm like, why? Why? That to institutionalize you. And I see what these places are doing. There was a place that I wanted to work with down the street, just opened up and everything. I met with the owner, and I wanted to refer people to there if they needed a 30-day rehab after. I couldn't believe what I saw. I went in to I just attended one group. And I sit down with 12 people, and she goes, okay, everybody go to the kitchen and go pick up some tin foil. And I was like, is this a joke? Because I use tin foil to smoke heroin. I'm like, she was dead serious. Everybody goes to the kitchen, they rip up the tin foil, they put it into little balls, and she said, okay, now pick a partner. Picked a partner, now pass the tin foil ball back and forth to each other. I'm like, okay, passing it back and forth. 15 minutes into it, she stops the group. She's like, can anybody tell me why we're doing this? And I'm like sitting there bewildered, going, you tell me. And then all of a sudden, like she's dropping a bomb. She's like, teamwork. And I'm like, I can't believe this is an actual group going on right now. I can't believe, and not only that, here's the real sad part about that. The rehab actually referred somebody to us originally, and we helped him get off his meds. He was off all of his meds. He was doing great. Anxiety was down to a 0, depression down to like a 0. He was doing amazing. And went back to the rehab. I went back about 3 or 4 months later, and I see him still there. And I'm like, he's a young kid, good-looking kid too, like athlete type, and really just the kindest person too. And so kind that he doesn't know how to say no or stand up for himself. And I'm like, what are you doing still here? And he had this glossy glaze over his face. And I'm like, what did they put you on? He's like, Depakote. And I'm like, why? He's like, they said I needed it. I go, did you? He goes, not really, but they said since I've been on it. I go, that's why you came to us. We got you off that, and we handled your depression, your anxiety. They put him back on it. When I told the doctor this, he was just like, I thought his head was going to blow up. To put a kid like that back on Depakote after we already healed him. And the only thing that he would need from us is coming back to get a booster every once. When it comes to a booster is one infusion that brings you right back to where you should be. I had one yesterday, like I told you.
And I feel back to the old me again. So a booster is what they needed, or what he needed. If he was experiencing any depression, he would come back from one booster and he'd be fine again for like another couple of months. And what happens is, do you need ketamine for the rest of your life? Some people might, but did I? No. I had a 6-year break where I didn't need anything, and then anxiety came back into my life 3 months later, and I started to get ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. But what happened with this guy is he was there for now 3 months, and I'm like, when are you leaving? He's like, I'm not. I go, what do you mean? He's like, well, they have me signed up for outpatient, and I'm going to be staying at their facility off campus, and then I'm going to do partial hospitalization, and then I'm going to do outpatient, and then I'm going to do sober living for a year. And I'm like, wow, this is the most insane shit I've ever heard. They're literally, they are institutionalizing this kid who's 22 years old, putting him on meds that he doesn't need, and keeping him locked into the system. As long as insurance is still paying, keep it going. Nuts. Are you there? I keep on losing you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
just shocked. I'm just like
I lose your
breathing.
picture.
I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, you know what? One of the times that I did ketamine, especially recently with a therapist, it was, I don't go in with any expectations about what I'm going to talk about, but what came out of me was the trauma that I went through with the rehab system, the trauma that I went through with AA, and the trauma of like just listening to people that didn't have my best interests at heart. Say a psychiatrist putting me on 6 or 7 different meds, when one would have been fine. The main thing is like getting over your shit and then helping another person out of it that was like you. Because there's so many people like me that really look at themselves as a failure because they can't make it into a system that was never made for them. It's so sad to me. You are not a failure. You just haven't found the right program, the right medicine, and the right people. And hold on, skip the program part. A program is not necessary for recovery, okay?
Right.
It's not. There's no evidence whatsoever that is showing that you need to go into some program. And I see people commenting all the time on your page, what program do you recommend then? What are you doing for their sobriety? Huh? What have you done to help an addict today? You're helping people like me deprogram from a religious cult, so I don't beat myself up so badly, or think that I'm constitutionally incapable when that was never the case. We're going with 1939 theories, which is absolutely insane. I didn't even realize all these words came from AA and have no background in psychology. Codependency, AA. Dry drunk, there's no such thing. But it's their favorite way to insult you. He's just dry, Jimmy. He's just dry. Don't worry about him. No, I'm neurodivergent.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I say this quite a lot because I think it's a really important thing to say. It's what I wish I heard, so I say it again. And when I got sober, 2009, 2010, somewhere in that first year, I told my sponsor, I'm ADHD. I'm ADHD, my brain's not working, I'm freaking out. And it was really bad, especially that first year. And I'm kind of off Klonopin too. And they had me on Neurontin and gabapentin, which I saw on your TikTok that, like, those are the 2 meds that they put me on in rehab to get me off the Klonopin, because they yanked me off Klonopin in 1 week, which now I know is why I probably freaked out so much in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was not recommended, but that's anyway. But I told my sponsor, I think I'm ADHD. It's really bad. Like, it's so bad that, like, I can't function. I feel like I can't. And everyone's just like, no, you're an alcoholic. You're unemployable because you're an alcoholic, or whatever they say, right? And she said, no. She said, the only problem that you have is alcoholism, and the only solution you'll ever need is the 12 steps. So it would be 15 more years. 15 years is a really long time to not understand your brain until I actually got diagnosed ADHD. But I knew it, and I don't remember if I said it in 2009 or 2010, but I knew it way back then in my first year of sobriety that I was ADHD, and it would have been so much more helpful if I had actually been researching ADHD and how to naturally work with that brain versus, because quite frankly, after getting off benzos, I don't want to get on anything else ever again because I don't want to have to come off anything. I don't want to have to come off the ADHD meds, so I don't want to get on them. I have nothing against them, but I want to try everything else first, right? It's like last house on the block for me because it was so traumatic coming off benzos for me personally. It took as long as I was on them to come off them. And I would wake up every day with an anxiety attack, and I'm sober, and it was just like, it was relentless. Although that's really what inspired me to go all in on studying nervous system regulation, because I was so dysregulated. So it was a great teacher for me. I don't regret it all, but it was just, I think a lot of my passion, and I'm realizing as we talk, is because of all the misdiagnosis, misassessments, mistreatment of all these protocols that were actually harming me probably more than helping me, that it's not necessary. And I just don't want the next generation to have to go through everything that a lot of us had to go through. It's so, yeah.
That's it. And this is why she is doing this. She's doing this to save lives, and it's so sad that, people that are stuck in it, and I would have seen you as a suppressed person also when I was in the cult. I would see, like, why is this person going after our amazing program that saves lives? And meanwhile, I can't get 90 days in 17 years, and I'm like, I kept on praising the program, because it gets put into your head over and over. It's just a bunch of people in a circle, praising one way. It's nuts to me,
right.
Praising the 12 steps and praising AA and the traditions and this and that. And I actually, oh my God, hold on. This is why it gets a little, this is a part I left out. So during COVID, Kirsten, I turned it into a positive thing. But I started up with this group called Psychedelics in Recovery.
Yes.
I'm like, I was so interested, okay? I was one of the first 11 or 12 people to do it. I immediately linked up with this woman who was getting her master's in psychology, and we both saw the same, shit about AA and everything like that. But yet, the people that founded PIR, Psychedelics in Recovery, it wasn't even up for debate. We're using the 12 steps, and this is going to be a 12-step program. I fought it like you have no idea. Even though I believed in the whole psychedelics and recovery and everything like that, I couldn't believe, and I warned them. I said, guys, if we're going to be doing this, I want you to understand this now. You're inviting that culture into here. And you'll see what I'm talking about a year from now, but you're inviting that culture. That toxic culture is going to be coming in here. And I was right. A year later, men on there are hitting up women privately, sending them pics, stuff like that. Men are being abusive, telling women to shut up, and, oh, shut up with you and your stupid liberal COVID theories. I can't believe what I was hearing. It's normal. And the weird part about it was no other men other than me would say something. I made the guy cry because that's my specialty. If you're going to do that to other people, I'm going to out-bully you, and I will. Mm-hmm. And I will make you feel like dirt. And I did. The guy cried, on camera and then finally shut it off. But you don't tell a woman to shut up. No, actually, I'm being nice. He said, shut the fuck up to her, And I said it right there. I said, guys, this is what I warned you about. This is the kind of culture that I warned you about coming in, And I even wrote up a new steps. I'm like, why don't we rewrite these? They're like, go ahead, Justin, you do it. And I said, okay, I did. And they were great. I had my friend who's getting her master's look them over. She's like, this is way better. No, but the two guys that started it, one of them actually is a known predator who was going to have an article coming out about him, and then he lawyered up and sued before the article got released, but a lot of it is true. And I'll tell you this, the psychedelic scene is to be truthful, and I hate saying this, it's worse than AA. It is. It's filled with so many predators, so many narcissists, so many abusers. And what they do, though, is they mask with, a ponytail or a tie-dye shirt or a little peace necklace or something like that, Oh, I've been a guru for years and trained by the shamans of Peru. I mean, it's, the psychedelic scene actually kind of freaks me out too. So if I had a choice of going into a room with hardcore steppers or going into a room with psychonauts, we call them, I would choose a pit of alligators, over all that.
Oh my God.
I mean, there's such unhealed narcissism in both, and the majority of us, I don't know about you, but the majority of us come in to recovery with narcissistic traits. That's not narcissistic personality disorder. They're two different things. You can have traits, and then you can get rid of the traits with the correct therapy and the correct work. The problem is AA doesn't do anything to address those narcissistic traits. So now you're left with a bunch of people that are sober, but they're still displaying, those same narcissistic traits though.
It's a problem because they think they're in a solution, but it's not really actually a solution. It's a religion, which isn't a solution for mental health or whatever they have going on. It's weird. So I left AA the beginning of the pandemic, April 6, 2020, and I went to one meeting after that, but I had already left AA. But when my sobriety birthday in September that year, I went to one meeting because it was a meeting that everything was on Zoom, right? And I always wanted to see what this meeting was like. It was called 10 After or something. It was a San Francisco meeting. I was in Indonesia, but I zoomed into this San Francisco meeting where I got sober. And I always wanted to know what happens at the 10 After meeting, because you can't go unless you have more than 10 years sober. So I turned 11 years sober. I zoomed into the 10-year sober thing. I recognized some people from, my early sobriety that were still in AA, right, on the Zoom. And I just listened in for an hour to this Zoom. And I was horrified that this is what 10 plus years sober looked like. These people, what they were saying. My heart, part of me was I felt very empathetic. I was these people are struggling and suffering, and it's so, I feel so bad. And for them, my heart went out to them. The other part of me was this not, do you see that it's not working? Because I always thought this was some elevated enlightenment or something at this 10 plus exclusive club of sobriety over a decade of sobriety. And when I went, to be fair, I had already been reading the orange papers. I'd already had months of therapy, getting rid of all the ideology. And I went in to see what this elusive club was. And I was horrified at how unwell, I was they don't have a solution, but they think they do. And that's when I was oh, is this why those people in your home group, Frank in the corner who has 40 years of sobriety, all of a sudden you come back on Tuesday and he's blown his brains out over the weekend? Is that why these old timers are not living anymore? Because they think they have a solution and they don't?
And they don't.
That's what I started thinking. And I can't know why anybody is not alive anymore who takes their own life, but it's it's not working.
It's not working. If it didn't work for the founder, we have an issue with the program. It didn't work for him. He was clinically depressed for 20 years, just not drinking. And the saddest part of Bill W.'s story was he wanted a drink on his deathbed, and AA turned him down. The board said no.
I would have given him a drink. What do you want, shaken or stirred?
That's what a normal, decent human being would do. A cult wants to preserve the narrative. So insane to me, it really, really is that this is still going on right now, and I'm not looking to take it away from everybody. I just want people to be informed of the reality of it and not this illusion that they're seeing, and not, when they are read the promises, people like me are just one day I'll get to here and these promises will come true for me. No, because there was nothing in AA that was going to heal a young 3-year-old version of Justin that was raped. There wasn't. There's nothing to address that. There's nothing to address neurodivergency.
Yeah.
It's just, it's sad to me because people are losing their lives over it. They'll come on your page and they'll attack you and say that you're keeping people away from meetings and causing them to, die. And it couldn't be the furthest thing from the truth. You're keeping people from going into a toxic religious cult with a success rate of 5%. I believe it's even lower for NA because opiates have a lower success rate too. So it's probably around like 2%. That's insane. When there's a medication out there that has a 60% success rate. Do you know what the success rate for ketamine assisted psychotherapy is? You're going to be blown away. Okay, for alcohol use disorder, there's a UK study that...
Yes.
Oh, you know about the UK study.
I was studying it before our call today, and I watched this video, and I was like, oh my God.
Yes. For alcohol...
They compared ketamine assisted psychotherapy to AA.
It's the CARE trial.
Yeah, the CARE trial. It's the biggest trial that's ever happened for ketamine. They're in process right now. I went to their application page. I read the whole thing. I was like, this is so cool.
86%. I'm reading it right now. Ketamine combined with psychotherapy achieved 86% abstinence at the 6-month follow-up. In the earlier phase 2 trial, that result led to funding for the larger UK More Care trial. Wow. 86%. Why isn't this talked about in every single meeting? Didn't they promise us that science may one day come up with this? They have. Because it's taking away from prayer.
100%. I think it's the indoctrination is the biggest problem because the way that I see it, it's like AA is not a belief, it's a belief system. It becomes an entire worldview. So we end up seeing everything through the ideology. So any new belief that comes in to be examined is examined through the AA lens. AA isn't a belief that we hold. It's something that holds all of the beliefs that come into us. It's a filter for everything. So when we're in AA, like a lot of the commenters will write, not everybody, obviously it's how much you've been indoctrinated, but this idea that a drug can't help get you sober is not true. But in AA, because you have this abstinence purity thing, because it's Christian evangelical roots, right, in the Oxford group, so you think that drugs are bad, period. That took me a long time actually to deprogram from. I was in Indonesia during the pandemic, and I left AA, and I had all these entrepreneur friends, and the island was empty. It's 80% tourism, and they closed the airport, so people just kept leaving, but nobody was coming back. So Bali was pretty much empty. So, it made all the houses really easy or low price to rent, right? So my friends and I, we just rent these beachfront like villas, and we'd go there for a week and do like a mastermind with our businesses or whatever. We just go here, go there, whatever. And I remember at one point, one of the ladies I was with had a podcast about psychedelics. Another one was like all about psychedelics. Somebody else had brought psychedelics to the villa, and everyone is talking about psychedelics the entire time. And I was like, oh my God, I'm used to hanging out with AA members for the past decade. I was like, everyone's talking about psychedelics, and I freaked out because it was pressing up against my indoctrination. So I had already deprogrammed, I thought I had. And so I went down into my room, and I'm sitting in my room, and I just went online, and I was meditating, and I was breathing. I made a raw cacao. I made a little fucking ceremony, and I was journaling. And I was like, what the fuck do I think about this without AA ideology infiltrating my thought process? Exactly. And after reading peer-reviewed research papers, and after thinking for myself, and after going in deep and figuring out intuitively what felt right, I was like, psychedelics are not a relapse. It to me, when it even comes to this idea of relapse or not, and now I don't even use the word relapse, but that's what I decided then. I was like, if I'm using something to heal or to expand my consciousness, that is fundamentally different than if I am numbing out my emotions because I don't know how to be with myself and I'm trying to cope with the fucking moment, is very different than expanding my mind or healing through a substance. And that's when I was like, I separated it, and I was like, whoa. But it really took the pressure of being in this villa with all these people talking about psychedelics, and she's recording her psychedelic podcast, and I'm like, what is this? And that was like my psychedelic awakening. I was like, oh, that isn't Oh, okay. So that's when I like healed that bit of that indoctrination.
They call that a calling. When you end up in a room with a bunch of people that are just talking about psychedelics like that, it's calling you. It's didn't you do ayahuasca or no?
Yeah, so I was so fucking uncomfortable, and then I was like, all of a sudden I was watching all these, and they were talking about ayahuasca. One of them was a Cambo person. She was all about Cambo, and that was like her podcast.
That.
She had right,
you know that,
Cambo
right?
facilitator.
Yeah,
Your
Cambo.
Wellness Lodge, Cambo, IV massage. I was taking some notes earlier.
Oh, okay.
And so,
yeah,
and they were talking about
is not talked about at all, and that's nuts.
Yeah, so she was a Cambo practitioner, and then they were all doing Cambo and stuff, and I was like, no, I'm not. Like, that's like, kind of. I was like, I don't think that I want to do anything right now, but I'm changing my mind right now. And I watched that documentary. Was his name Michael something? Changing Your Mind, and it was about psychedelics.
Yep, Michael Pollan.
Something like that. Yeah.
How to Change Your Mind.
And so then I flew to San Francisco. And I was so mind-effed about it, though. I started, like, binging podcasts about ayahuasca, and I couldn't stop myself. I was like, something about it is, like, I need to learn more or something. And then I flew to San Francisco from Bali, which is a long flight. I had spent the night in Singapore airport. Anyways, it's been 36 hours I've been traveling, so I'm tired. And when I get to SFO, they're like, we put your luggage on a different flight. It's not going to be here for 3 hours. And I was like, well, I'm not leaving the airport without my stuff. It's literally all, like, I just have all, So I was like, well, I might as well get comfortable. And so I'm by the conveyor belt. I have my laptop. I open it up. I open up YouTube, and all of a sudden this documentary about ayahuasca pops up on my YouTube. And I was like, I got the chills, and I was like, what? So then I watched the documentary, and the entire time I'm watching it, part of me is going, you hate psychedelics. They freak you the fuck out. They're so scary. It's never fun to do, but you become a better human afterwards. So I have such respect for them, but they freak me out, and I never want to do them, but I'm always glad I did, kind of a thing.
Yes.
So then I was like, but every bit of my intuition, my soul, my body is vibrating like this is the thing for me to do. By the time I finished the documentary, I was like, I'm supposed to go here, and this is the shaman, and this is the place, and I don't want to, but everything in me knows this is a yes. And I'm not the kind of woman who's going to ignore the call of my soul or the call of whatever. You know what I mean? When I feel it in my bones, like, this is it. Mm-hmm. So within a week, I was booked up to this retreat in Peru, and I went down, and you know what? The first night was traumatic. Like, it was so traumatic. It brings tears to my eyes. It was so fucking traumatic. I only had half a cup too. Some people had 2 cups because I was like, look, shaman, I'm really sensitive. I don't want a lot. Like, I'm good.
Look, shaman.
And and so the thing was like, what, 4 or 5 hours, whatever it was. The shaman even leaves the room. Not for me. I was fucking blasting for 10 hours, and I'm looking around, and I can't tell if it's really over or if I'm confused, and I'm like, what is going on? And
somebody should have been there for you.
I kept crawling to the bathroom, and there's a shower, and I kept showering because they said water will make you come down. So I kept showering. Sure. I was like, oh my God. And then at one point I'm in the shower, and I'm curled up like in fetal position. And I'm just like, this was my thought. I was like, you're going to permatrip, and all the people in AA are going to make fun of you. And here you are, you lost your mind. You're never coming back. And everyone in AA is going to laugh at you. And I was like, okay. And I was breathing. And then I went back. Finally, eventually came down. And then the next morning, I ended up seeing the shaman in the retreat center. There was like a breakfast area, and I ended up getting to talk to him for like an hour because nobody else was awake, and I didn't really fucking sleep. So I'm like, what the hell happened, dude? And it's really interesting because my intention was I want to understand my mind and heal my brain. And I realized, don't ever go into a psychedelics ceremony saying you want to understand your mind, because it was literally the biggest mind fuck I've ever had. And what I really realized, because it was traumatic for me, but it was trauma in a good way, because I realized that what it was showing me was what I was doing in my waking hours normally. And I got so much of it that I basically got all the mind Fs like delivered in that 10-hour period. So it fundamentally changed how I engaged with life. After the integration period was, I would notice my mind wanting to go somewhere, and I wouldn't go there. It didn't like unhook me necessarily, but it made me realize how painful that pattern is for me. And And then there was also a really cool moment. Sorry, I didn't know I was going to do a random trip report here. There was a really cool moment on that where I kind of figured out like what to do or how to do it right, in quotes, where I completely relaxed and I wasn't fighting the medicine anymore. And when I relaxed for those 15 minutes, which was all I was capable of relaxing that first night, all of a sudden I went into the most beautiful experience ever. I was inside of a rocket ship and this laser beam came to my forehead, and all I can say is I think aliens gave me brain surgery, which was my request. Understand my mind, heal my brain. And it was, I could feel these circuits like rewiring my brain, and I had a shoulder injury, and then it went and rewired my shoulder. And like, it was so beautiful and it was so cool. And I don't know why I'm sharing all that with you right now, other than I don't actually enjoy psychedelics, but afterwards, and my brain did heal, I felt like I was being called there and led there, and it was so important to me to trust that. Yeah. And then in the third ceremony, which I won't explain, that's when I was actually able to let go and let the medicine take me. And I had a huge healing journey, but I had to even learn how to mentally let go so that the medicine could move me.
Let go. Let go. That's what we tell every single one of our patients. The only 2 words that you need to understand right now about what's going to happen to you is let go. That's it. Let go and let the medicine do what it needs to do. And what you said about aliens rewiring you, I've had the same experience. Under ketamine, the exact same experience, except I'll be almost like floating in, like it seems space, and they'll hook me up with some wires and they're putting fluids into me, and I know that they're around watching me and guiding me. The whole thing with psychedelics is like, I don't understand it, but I just let go and trust. That Ibogaine is a little bit different, but none of these medicines are looking to hurt you. They're looking to bring out the best side of you. So when someone says that they had a bad trip, there's never a bad trip. What it is it's bringing their demons to the surface. That's it. It's coming right out of the amygdala and coming to the surface, and that's what they're experiencing. Yeah.
Right. And what I really learned from that night, which was not fun, the first night was not fun at all to experience, but at the same time, it wasn't scary. Like, I was in a pit with like snakes and other things, and it was dark, but I wasn't scary. It wasn't predatory. There was no fear even. It was that I was resisting it. And what I learned is how often I'm resisting things, and for me, it was about literally physically relaxing my body, going to parasympathetic. And it was so powerful. And then the third night, I mean, my DNA was rewired with light lasers and light codes and light beams. And I mean, when I heard people talk about that stuff, I was like, that's cuckoo bananas. But when it was actually happening at the cellular level and I was witnessing it, I mean, it's just something kind of different. I don't know what it is. I don't know. But I know it helped me in my healing. And I know that if I feel called to do it again, I will. Yeah. I haven't. And I haven't gone back, but if I felt an overwhelming desire from my spirit or whatever the mystery is calls me to go, I will. Sure. And that's who I am and how I live.
Yeah. It's absolutely shocking to me that psychedelics aren't talked about more when it comes to the recovery scene. Yes, it was just my experience, but overnight I was cured. With one dose, I was able to see why I was doing this and that I didn't want to be that person anymore. That was it, and yes, I did ayahuasca, over those 2 years that I was in basic training. I was actually serving it, not as a shaman, but I was facilitating next to the shaman. Also became a Reiki master also. I didn't understand why I became a Reiki master, but I did DMT one day after I did Ibogaine. I think it was like 4 months or something. Yeah, it was about 4 months that I started experimenting. And they told me, okay, your next step is DMT. And I'm like, whoa, that's the big one. And they're like, yeah, but you need that. And I'm like, okay. So I did that, and I went to a different world, and it was real quick. And they were just very precise. They said, you need to go learn Reiki right away. And then push me right out.
Wow.
Lasted 3 minutes. Usually it's like 15 minutes, 3 minutes. And I just said to everybody, they're like, what happened? And I'm like, they told me to go learn Reiki. They're like, oh. Yeah, I was like, what's Reiki? They're like, energy healing. And I'm like, They're like, if they're telling you to go learn it, learn it. And I'm like, okay. I signed up for a class that weekend. I didn't understand what I'm doing with all these like hippie people. And then one of the nights that I was facilitating ayahuasca, a woman within 20 minutes had a meltdown. Started pulling on her hair, screaming, calling for the cops. The shaman and the other 9th degree Reiki master took her upstairs, and I could still hear the rumbling. I tried to go back in my trip, and I could still feel like her energy. And then I heard a voice saying, "This is why we told you to learn Reiki. Go use it."
Wow.
And I'm like, this is the shaman will handle. And I went back into it, and it wouldn't let me go back into it. It said, "Get up there now." I went upstairs, and the shaman only speaks Spanish. And the woman was freaking out, going, "Why is this guy talking like that? Get him out of here." You know, and the other woman, who was a 9th degree Reiki master, hippie type, this is why psychedelic people drive me nuts, all about peace and everything like that. She is like, "Get this fucking bitch out of here, fuck her," and blah, 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 calling the cops in my house. I'm like, this is not the energy we need. Leave the room.
Yeah.
Then I went over to the woman and I said, "Is it okay for me to put my hands on you?" She said yes. And I said, okay. And I just put my hand on her heart and her head, and within 1 minute, everything in her body settled down. And I realized right there, like,
I have the chills.
Like, what is going on? I was like, I feel like I entered, a parallel universe that I've never known about. And that was kept from me. Like, I wish that, a lot of people suffering knew the power that psychedelics have, to produce great change. Not just like help change you, but like great change. I was a Las Vegas DJ living that Las Vegas DJ life. And I came back, and the only thing I wanted to do was rescue puppies and feed the homeless with my extra money. And it wasn't performative either. It was sincere, I felt like I had just been given the biggest break, and this was going to be my way of paying back. That's what I did. I just became a very, very different person, That doesn't mean I was completely fixed right away. We all have issues that we'll go through in life. When it came to the addiction part, that was basically over. The mental, I'm still working on. As I told you, I did a ketamine infusion yesterday. That's because I'm dealing with a breakup right now that is really, really, really tough on me. And the amazing thing about ketamine is I had such ruminating thoughts going through my head, for the last 2-3 days, just replaying things over and over and over again. And I got ketamine yesterday, and by last night, all the ruminating thoughts are gone, and I'm starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I'm remaining strong. I'm not giving in to the text and all that other stuff. I'm just remaining strong. Yeah. That's because of the ketamine. Do I take medicine daily or anything? No. But if I'm like in a hole like I was, I will definitely utilize what I have access to, And is it fun for me? No. It's an hour of crying hysterically, It's an hour of truths about yourself that you don't want to hear. So I love when I hear people say, "Oh man, you just want to get high, bro." I don't think you understand. For anybody that is saying that, I dare you to take an Ibogaine trip, okay? Like, it is not for the weak-hearted, the weak-minded. It is brutal 12 hours of going through hell. Like I told you before, Ibogaine is very different than the other psychedelics. It's not gentle. Ketamine is very gentle. Ibogaine is not. It's like being smacked around by a military drill instructor. And it'll show you some of the darkest things that you've ever seen. Gloomy on top of that. But did it work? Overnight. Overnight for me.
Yeah, I love that. Ayahuasca night 1 for me, because it was 4 nights in a row. Night 1 was one of the hardest nights of my life, for sure. And it was also one of the best teachers of my life. And so there's only been 3 times that I've had a hero's dose, I would say, of psychedelics. It was, well, actually, I have a question for you after this. 2 ayahuasca trips, because the other 2 I went like even less than a half a dose because I was scared. I was like, the next day I felt like I had PTSD. I was like, I can't do it again. I was like, well, I can't not do it. I'll have just a little taste. Sure. But when I was a teenager, I didn't know what psychedelics were, really. I didn't understand them. And this was before Google, and we just bought them. We didn't ask questions. We just gave him our money, and he gave us a bag of mushrooms, and we ate them all. And we were young, very young, and I thought it was going to be like drinking a beer. Like, I had no context, and all of a sudden we realized right away that we needed to get to my friend's house, that we should not be in public. So we just started walking miles, and that walk was wild. During this experience, I was no longer a human. I didn't have a personality. I wasn't in physical space. The only way I can describe it is I was consciousness existing in space. I was expanding through space. I didn't know anything like that was possible. I thought something was very terribly wrong. And then I came back, right? And I started to be like, oh, my name is Kirsten. Oh, I'm a human. Oh, I go to high school. Oh, this. And so I had no context. I didn't understand integration. I didn't understand any of that. Again, this was before I'd ever been on the internet. So there was just no reference for any of it. And I didn't really talk to anybody about it afterwards. But for 6 months, I was like unpacking it all still. And I just kept looking around at everything. I was like, none of this really matters for like what's really going on here. Like, it was my first big spiritual awakening. And my core belief that I hold to this day is we're souls inside bodies here to evolve, which for me is the point for me being here is to evolve. And from that perspective, it's like, I am glad that I went to AA from that perspective, because it was a huge evolution thing for me to understand what it's like to be fully possessed by an ideology and to pop out. I'd rather read about it in a book, quite frankly. But, so I don't regret my experiences or what I've learned or how I've evolved and what tools. And from that also, like, it made me really scared of psychedelics, but also to really understand them, because that was probably the most powerful night of my life. I did not enjoy it at all, but it shifted the foundation of how I see the world. And I got that at such a young age. And I was like, whoa, we're spiritual beings, have a human experience kind of a thing. You know what I mean?
We are. Have you done a past life regression with a therapist?
Not with a therapist.
Okay. Did you actually go back or no?
I have. Well, so like when I first moved to Bali in 2014, I did every spiritual thing possible, almost like an addiction. I just went and did everything. I didn't know, even with masters, like Reiki, you're supposed to do it slowly. I did all through masters right away, and I had kind of fried my system. Yeah. I was doing psychic surgery. I was every breath work. I was just like shamanic, colonics, whatever. It's like, let's do it
Shamanic,
all.
colonic. That's a great name. I got to open up a place.
I was just trying it all. It was like I was wearing a bindi. I had feathers in my hair. I was going by my hippie name. I mean, it was like a fucking time.
I love it.
So I did do past life regression, but none of this was with, like, I would say professionals. It was all with like psychics and stuff.
Right. There's like a specific protocol that they use in order to take you back. It's like you envision going down the stairs. You're in a room of doors. You have to choose a door. And at first I was like, this is bullshit. I was like, there's no way I'm going to run into, the old me or my old soul. Oh my God. Yeah, the first one I saw is I was an 8-year-old Dutch boy that drowned in a well.
Wow.
And Tushar, our combo practitioner, was my sister. Another one was I went back and I saw that I was a general in the Irish Army. Another one, it was so dark, I don't even want to talk about it. And I was the problem. I was the predator.
Yeah.
And wanted to get out of that one real quick, and don't want to see that about yourself. The general, sure, let's dive into this a little bit more, but then you see an ugly part of your soul and you're like, wow, okay. And then you put it all together and you're like, that is kind of me. I can get a little bit dark, I still can act like a child, but at the same time I'm like a general in the army when it comes to leadership, so all of these little parts, after we do a regression, we can kind of see how we became the person that we are now. A big part of that, which was really interesting, she wanted to skip the past lives and go all the way back to where I actually came from, my original family. Wow. This is where it gets weird. When I got Reiki attuned, when they attune you,
Yeah.
I opened up my eyes and I saw 3 gray aliens standing in front of me with long necks that were just observing me up and down, and then they faded away after about 45 seconds. When I did the past life regression and I went back to see my original family, it was those 3 aliens.
Oh, ooh, I'm getting the chills. Crazy.
It was those 3 aliens. I asked them why I'm here and not with you guys. And they said, basically, I'm like the black sheep of the family, and I'm down here to learn lessons. That's all. And I'm going to keep on repeating until I've learned it and become the soul that I'm supposed to be, and then back to return.
My whole body is freaking out right now.
Yeah.
I have the chills like crazy.
If you would have told me this years ago, I would have been like, okay, dude, smoke another one.
Yeah.
But when you've actually experienced these things, it's a way different thing. Because like I'm definitely that guy that likes to debunk things. You tell me a conspiracy, I'm gonna go out of my way to debunk it. You tell me about past lives, and I'm gonna try to debunk it. But when I can name my name and what year it was, and then see exactly how I died, something is going on. I forgot what college did it though, but they did a study with 5,000 participants and proved that almost everybody had a very similar story when it came to their soul's journey, or when it came to death and appearing. They say that when you die, you get a life review. You go over everything that you did right and everything that you did wrong.
Yeah.
I'm hoping when that time does come, that I get a decent review, That's it. And I'm somebody who definitely did not do life the right way at first, but I'm somebody who's trying to correct that, daily. That's my recovery now, is just not being that person that I was before and contributing to making this world a better place. That's my recovery, that's it. It's really, really easy, And to me, the things that are important aren't day counts or anything like that. It's how much happiness do you have, How at peace are you, How are you with other people, When I see these men coming on your page and attacking you personally, it's sad to me because I understand how unhealed they are, and they're never going to get better. They're going to think that they're doing great, they're picking up their chips, they're acquiring time, but yet their mental state is in the dumpster. These guys on your page that are calling you names and stuff like that, where do you think their mental health is at? Do you think that these guys are happy with life? No. How dare a woman come on and tell me about my program?
Yeah.
It's sad to me.
Some guy wrote something yesterday. It was so wild. He said, do you have a husband or a boyfriend or a coworker who knows what you know and who could talk about it? Because I can't listen to a woman talk. I just shut down, but I like what you're saying. So is there a man near you that knows what you know that can make videos? And I was like, yo, we like, cut.
God. Can you please seek therapy? My God, what the hell? But
right? And so part of me is hyper empathy, and part of me is like, oh, I feel for you because how limiting that is, and I see you, and that sucks, and I get it, and you need help, but you don't see that you need help. You see that the world needs to change for you, and women shouldn't talk, and that's also horrific, and go fuck yourself. So I kind of have the empathy part of me, and then the what the fuckery part of me. It's like, huh? No, wow. No man's gonna speak for me to make you more comfortable. No, thank you.
I can't even believe you know what? And here's the thing is, if they are so healed and they're doing so well in their recovery, why do they have the need to come on your page and attack you, even not your message, but you personally? That's not somebody who's healed. When I see pages, that are going on and on about how important the steps are or whatever, because it comes up on my feed, unfortunately. I don't go on there and go, hey, sucks, it's the worst program in the world. I don't give a shit. Enjoy, enjoy your time. Hopefully, I pray that you figure it out, but,
yeah,
the last thing I'm doing is
Yeah.
wasting my day commenting on somebody that I disagree with. Just let them believe what they want to believe, and that's it, and move on. Yeah, these people that are
Right.
coming on your page are
Right.
just they are the reason why we left AA. They're the exact reason why I left AA. I'll never forget my men's meeting. They would get very comfortable when there were no black people in the room, and all of a sudden the N-word would now come out. And I was, this is before I did psychedelics though, and I was just like, this is disgusting, but not thinking of like leaving over it. I would say something to the guy after the meeting,
'Cause
like,
you can't leave.
you can't leave, because if you leave, leaving equals death. So you're now sitting in a
Right.
room with racists, bigots, sex offenders, and you have to act like you're okay with them. I remember having to sit next to a guy with a Nazi tattoo on his neck, and I remember texting my sponsor like, hey, I think I'm going to unload on this guy in like 2 seconds, and I'm going to, just beat the shit out of him right here. And, oh no, Justin, this is a test for you, this and that. You have to learn acceptance. So I have to be accepting of a Nazi next to me? I have to be accepting
Yeah.
of the guy running the group who's telling us all how he used to hook up with a squirrel in his backyard. I don't want to associate
Whoa.
with these people. Yeah, I know. This really happened. This guy was the leader of AA in Vegas, okay? He ran a group outside of AA that was way more cult-like than AA called the Specific Group, okay? There was one in LA that was called the Pacific Group, and then we started the Specific Group.
Oh, right.
Everybody wore
Right.
ties. The women wore dresses. No swearing is allowed.
Yeah.
And yet the guy who was running it was the biggest predator in all of AA. It was absolutely insane. And then I went to his house, and I thought that I was really in with the group now. I got invited to what I won't say his name, house. I'm like, wow, I really made it. And then he is giving his story about what he used to do with this squirrel, in a sexual manner.
Oh my God.
And everybody is just sitting there going, wow, he's so brave. This is why he's the leader. And I'm just like thinking to myself, this is the most disgusting shit in the world. Like, why, save this for your therapist. I really don't want to envision this like
Right.
65-year-old guy humping a squirrel, It's just like, but we that whole acceptance is the answer. I used to see it as like the best
Acceptance.
paragraph.
Page 417.
I used to think that was the best paragraph ever. And now you step out of it and you're like, no, acceptance is not the answer. Acceptance is the answer is turning you into a docile person, okay, who is not a
Right.
threat and doesn't ask questions and just minds their business.
Controllable.
That's not me. I'm not accepting of injustice like that. I'm not okay with
Yep.
it. I'm not accepting of predatory behavior, whether it's coming from the AA scene or the scene that I'm a part of, which was the psychedelic scene.
Yeah.
No, I'm not just going to
Yeah.
just sit back and accept it. No.
No.
Yeah.
No, totally. I have a question for you, and this is something like I just genuinely don't know. So I know what a K-hole is. I wouldn't know how to describe it in a way that somebody else who's never experienced it can catch the vibe of necessarily. I think with psychedelics, it's kind of hard to explain what it is unless you're in it, right? But ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, how does that differ from a K-hole? Is there a difference? Is it the same thing?
wow.
Because I come from the rave, so I'm just like, what is it?
Okay.
How do we
I'd love
think
to
about
explain
this?
Okay. A K-hole is just a good, decent dose of ketamine, and you're disassociating from it. So you kind of lose all feeling of your body. You don't even know that you're in the office, and it feels like you're traveling down almost like a wormhole in like 2001 Space Odyssey. But you might see castles, you might see lakes, you might see aliens, you might see ancestors, you might see pets that have died. There's all these different things that can happen when you're in there. People get scared of that because they hear the word K-hole and they feel like they're going to be in some kind of hole stuck. No, we're looking to put you there because that's where all the healing happens, is when you're disassociated from your body like that.
So the K-hole is the healing.
The K-hole is the healing. Yeah.
Okay, so the K-hole is
There's
the
a-
point. Okay,
yeah,
okay,
the
that's what
K-hole
I
is
was
the
like,
point.
I'm missing something here.
Yeah. The
Okay.
K-hole's the point. Like we're trying to get you to that point where you have disassociated from your body and you've let go. When you let go, you can get to that place. It's not a scary place if you're letting go. If you're fighting it,
Yeah.
sure, it could get a little bit nervous because you're out of control. The best thing to do is just say, I'm letting go and enjoy the ride. That's it, and understand that you're going to be out of this trip in about an hour or whatever it is, but you don't even when you're in that hole, time doesn't matter. Time is not, it just doesn't play a part. Now, when you're doing ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, very, very different. We are not looking to put you into a K-hole. We are looking to give you a very, very small dose, maybe half of what I do 120 milligrams usually. That's my number. I could probably go up, but I'm not looking, to go deep. But when I do ketamine-assisted psychotherapy, that gets cut to 60 milligrams. And the reason why is so it almost acts like a truth serum, and stuff just keeps on coming out of you. You might think that you're going in for one reason, and next thing you know, you're talking about your uncles, your father, this and that, and all these people that might have disappointed you in life. And I mean, it's wild where it can actually take you.
Yeah.
And the amount of relief that you feel afterwards, I don't know. I've been seeing the same therapist for 10 years. I love her more than anything. She's great. But those 10 years don't even come close to the 3 ketamine-assisted psychotherapy sessions I had. We never, ever touched on these issues. I never, ever, put 2 and 2 together the way that I was able to do it with ketamine and assisted psychotherapists.
Yeah, I mean, it really, my experience is that it's a tool that other modalities can't touch, that maybe
No.
through a lot of meditation you get certain results or this or that or whatever, but the things that I've learned through what I would say are 3 heroes doses, that first mushroom experience and then later the 2 ayahuasca ones, I'm very limited in my psychedelic experience, particularly because my first one was so intense that I was like, whoa, this is some serious stuff here. And it kind of gave me the healthy fear of whoa. Although there's something in my mind that says it would be really cool if I twice a year did a hero's dose of mushrooms to kind of remind me of what's really going on here, reset things, keep a maintenance or something. There's part
That's
of me
what it
that
is.
feels drawn towards that. But I haven't pursued that. I haven't felt led from a deep place that it's time to go into that. But part of me feels like maybe that would be in my future one day, where that's kind of, or an annual deep dive reset or something. Again, there's no part of me really likes it or enjoys it. And when I was at the rave, which was a long time ago, I didn't know what any of this stuff was, but I did do ketamine twice in one night. And
was probably
so I
DJing.
went to 2 K-holes and 2 K-holes in the same night, and it was what I would still describe as the weirdest experience of my life. All of a sudden, I am in a space or somewhere else.
Yeah.
Don't know where the hell I am. And then there's a moment where it's a burst where I get almost shot in the chest, and boom, I sit up and I'm I'm back. I'm back. And I'm where am I? Oh, I'm on the floor. Whoa, where was I? That was such a trip. So again, it was twice in one night, and never before, never after. And so I was so I know what a K-hole is from my own experience, but I didn't understand how that related to ketamine-assisted psychotherapy. And the psychotherapy piece is different too, because I was in the context of curious human who wants to understand psychology and life. I wasn't in the let's go, I didn't have any context. And I know set and setting are huge.
Everything. Set and setting is everything. You need to know that you're safe. You need to know that you're in a safe little bubble. You need to be around people that are trusted. You need to be able to reach out and say help if it's starting to get a little bit crazy, but what a game changer for recovery, and yet we have the largest recovery group telling you not to do this. It's insane.
I
to
mean,
me. And no, people are just so closed-minded when it comes to recovery, rehab, everything like that. When they hear that we're using something like combo, why are you killing people? Why are you doing this? It says it on Google that it kills people and this and that. I'm like, do you really think a board certified anesthesiologist is going to be okay with me using a medicine like this outside of the office if it was dangerous? It isn't. If you are ordering it from the internet and playing America's Next Top Shaman at home, sure, it could possibly be dangerous, okay? But we work with a master practitioner who's been trained on 3 different continents, and can actually teach it at this point. She's done thousands of people and never had one adverse experience ever. And when it comes to our patients, they're already only experiencing mild to moderate withdrawals, but still mild to moderate could be like a flu. So when they're like complaining about, like, say, restless legs, Tushar can come in, and I'm not joking, within 5 minutes, they go from a 7 on 1 to 10 pain to a 0. 5 minutes.
Wow.
And it's mainly because of the opiates in combo. There's opiates in combo that's not talked about.
Wow.
They are opiate peptides. They are not addicting you. They are not re-addicting you. They are not elongating your detox process. What they are doing to you is giving you all the relief that opiates give you, pain relief, and they're calming you down. But they are not re-addicting you. It's kind of I don't know the exact science behind it, but because I was always just like, how are these not re-addicting us? They're not.
Yeah.
It's a different area of the brain that they're hitting.
Well, and it's a very specific context too. So I was watching a bunch of ketamine on the news like this morning, and one of the things that the person was saying on the news broadcast, they went into a ketamine center in New York, and she's saying that about being addictive, it's like you're coming into a medical facility and you're having like a procedure here with professionals.
True.
This is not something you're getting on the internet. This is not something you're doing with your neighbor, Baba Dom, or whatever the hell. You have an appointment and you go in, just like if you were going to go to the dentist and they're going to give you something to numb out your teeth or whatever. It's like, this is like a medical procedure. This is a professional environment. And yeah, the studies that I saw about ketamine in the brain and alcohol use disorders specifically is that there's a specific unwiring that happens with a specific type of psychotherapy and the ketamine together that sets the brain up so that the brain is, I don't know if we want to use AA terms and say the pickle's now a cucumber or whatever,
you can use that.
But so
That's what happened.
that it's rewiring the addiction, the addicted part of the brain through not through doing ketamine at a rave on the floor like I did, but doing it specifically ketamine assisted psychotherapy. I'm not promoting drugs. I'm not promoting medication. I don't know what anybody should do, but I know what I should do, which is trust my intuition. And if that leads me to a medical facility, if that leads me to the Amazon in Peru, if that leads me, we're out of Alcoholics Anonymous, I'm going to trust the wisdom inside me. And then do research and whatever else. And that's the only thing I would ever encourage anybody. So I'm not promoting anything other than self-trust.
Exactly. Listening to your intuition. And here's another thing that people say to me all the time. Like, why are you trying to get people addicted to drugs? Like, I have to explain it to them like they're 4. Like, hey guys, people come to us very depressed and anxious and with trauma. That's why they use drugs. We heal the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD. They don't want to escape anymore, And when you've done ketamine in the office, the last thing you want to do on your day off is come home and do a little ketamine, and have a hangover for a while and be dizzy and your eyesight is, it's not fun. It's not fun. And it's especially not fun if you don't have any depression to cover up, or anxiety or trauma or anything like that. So
they're powerful teachers, healers, and in the right context, the right setting.
Every night, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I talked about what the doctor and I are doing, but I like to talk about alternative medicines, alternative forms of recovery, other ways of going about this, the problems, with traditional rehab, and why the success rate is so abysmal. When you can't get more than 15%, that business needs to be shut down. You're just not doing a good job. I'm sorry, but like either you're cutting corners or you're doing something, because when somebody wants to get help, we should be able to give them an answer. and not just keep them
Yeah.
in a revolving system. You know, like I talked about with that guy, you know, he was there for over a year in this rehab system. And,
Wow.
and they're convincing the family to keep him there, and that's the only way he's going to be safe. And I mean, he was like one of the easiest people I've ever dealt with, you know, just super, super nice, kind, easy to deal with, but very easy to manipulate, you know. So that's what the rehabs do, is they get you in, and then they try to keep you there as long as they possibly can.
To be fair, I don't think everybody's nefarious. I think a lot of them
No.
are culted. I think a lot of them believe that that is actually the path, that you are actually powerless, diseased, maladied, spiritual, God. I think a lot of them genuinely, some of them are nefarious. I think most of them, probably, if I had to guess, just genuinely believe
Yes.
that the low success rate is the best it's ever going to be. And anybody who claims higher
Yes.
there's a reason why that's not a good path, because you have to use drugs. But if you use these things that I would argue are medicines, not drugs in an addiction sense, and it gets you 80% or more or whatever, I don't remember, you said 84% or something, I'm a stats person. Like, my background is I have a master's in statistics, and I've worked in big data for startups and stuff. So show me the data. Like, show me the data. Like, I don't like care about one individual path over the other. I care about the results. What works?
Yeah.
Like, what works the best? And let's get the people with this dire situation. Addiction is brutal and deadly and horrific. Let's get the people the best treatment possible. And what are those? What's on the table as like the top treatments possible? That's why I started talking about Sinclair Method online. Everyone's like, are they sponsoring you? Is this Sinclair program sponsoring you? And I'm like, no, I looked at the data. I read the studies with a clear mind, because I'm sober, and I'm not drunk trying to look for a rehab. And I thought, well, why don't I use my brain that works now and help somebody out by reading the papers, looking at the stats, looking at how they do the studies. So my background is psychology and statistics. So I go in, I'm like, well, these ones have high results. Why aren't we talking about these ones? What? I'm not partial to a treatment. I'm all about what works best. Why aren't we all?
I'm the same way too. Like, I really think that, you know, we need to step up, and I don't know. I think there needs to be some kind of oversight going on with these rehabs. I don't think it's coming anytime soon, but if you are not producing, you should be closed. I don't believe it's just because your patients aren't working it hard enough. You know, I believe that they just aren't offering the correct medicine, the correct program, the correct therapy. You know, and they're sending them out into the wild. They're telling women to go to meetings with sex offenders. That's insane to me.
Yep.
90 and 90. And here's something you might not know, okay? Do you know how long it takes for the brain to be brainwashed?
It took me 60 days in AA to get, like, identify and locked in.
Wow. A KGB study from decades ago proved that 60 days is the exact time that it takes to be brainwashed, as long as you are hearing a message of fear on a daily basis. If you are hearing a message of fear, jails, institutions, death, leave us, you die, you're going to become brainwashed.
No. Oh my God, that's exactly, because I remember I went to AA at 30 days sober, and I remember right at 90 days, that's when I locked in. But I was relating, like, the speaker that I related to, I think he was autistic and ADHD, and I was relating to his brain, because he didn't talk about drinking. He talked about his thinking, which was reframed as untreated alcoholism and alcoholic thinking. I think he was also, he didn't know he was autistic. He was ADHD and probably autistic, and I was relating to his hypersensory sensitivities, his emotional dysregulation, his executive functioning. I was relating to something else, but he called it all alcoholism. The other thing I want to say is I was studying, as you do, North Korea and the war, and the American POWs who were captured, and it took them 24 hours to get these American POW, prisoners of war, to say that they were all about communism suddenly. in their own handwriting and in their own voices, to the point when the war was over, some of them did not repatriate. They stayed there and stayed in the country, but it 24 hours. And you know how they do it? Not aggressively, not obviously. They do it through, air quotes coming in, suggestions.
Wow. Suggestions, huh? Like pulling a
And
ripcord.
they're using their own, yeah, they're using their own voice to say, yeah, communism is the way to go. Like they've been converted into a new, and it took them 24 hours to get these prisoners. I was like, wait, what? So for me, it took 60 days. And I think it would take, especially if you're only going an hour a day, these people are captive, right? And they're in war prisoners. So they're already, the fear's already there. They're in a very different circumstance than when I went to an AA meeting.
Sure.
And I was there an hour a day, or I went to 2 meetings in the beginning, 2 hours a day, whatever.
Wow. Yeah, this is all of this is, you know, it's laughable sometimes, but it's incredibly sad to me. People's lives are on the line here, and we're telling them to pray it away. You know, just pray.
I love what you've devoted your life to. I love the work that you're doing. And I know you can't bring back that woman or DJ AM or anybody else who was, you know, a consequence or whatever of potentially 12-step ideology. But you're doing everything you can now to provide services that are really helping and healing and recovering people from a huge problem. Addiction's a huge problem. Nobody doubts that. And I'm just really glad to know you or know of you and know what you're doing and what you're up to. And yeah, I think it's really cool that you trusted that voice inside you that said, go this way. And I know it hasn't been easy, and you've worked your buns off to create everything that you've done, especially with a society that still thinks something that's super outdated is the number one model. And more power to you. I wish you all the success in the world for you and everyone who comes through your center. And I am really happy to have had this conversation with you. And I just wish these conversations were shouted from the rooftop, because there's more than one way to heal. And we deserve to know what's on the table so we can make the best choice for ourselves.
I couldn't agree more. And thank you for what you are doing. It's not just important, it's crucial. It's saving people's lives. Do not listen. Obviously, you know where, you know, these members are coming from that are attacking you, but also understand you have a following of people just like me, you know, that have been hurt or traumatized by this program and are still healing. I mean, just a couple of months ago, that was part of my trip, was healing from AA still, you know. So what you're doing is absolutely crucial, and thank you for stepping up, because it's not easy to be attacked every single day, because I see every single time I go on there, all I'm seeing is you attacked, and I'm like, holy shit, like I like that protective, like German Shepherd side of me just like wants to like go in there and handle, but like, no, you got this, and the way that you're handling it is perfect. You know, perfect. You're not lashing out back at them. You're not returning fire or anything like that. You're remaining calm in the storm. And that's what people need to see. Because they see your names and everything, and then they see you just reacting like, okay, buddy.
I just do more deprogramming content. I'm like, yeah, right there, that's the guilt manipulation in action. Or, you know, I literally call out the tactic.
Yeah. And then, thank you.
Oh, yeah, that's the phobia indoctrination speaking. Here's what it looked like for me. Boom.
Exactly. And that's it, you know. And I am seeing a lot of people starting to change their minds too. You know, they come in one way, and they're coming in one way, and then all of a sudden after a couple of, you know, comments, they're changing their minds. You know, like, hey,
I definitely don't see all the comments.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that there's too many.
Well, on some of them, there's like more than 1,000. I'm like, where are y'all coming from? You know what's so funny is like, so in Bali, like my first year in Bali, the ants were everywhere, and I was like, just come from San Francisco, city girl, and I didn't know how to be in the jungle, and I was like, there's life everywhere. Everything is so alive. and there was ants everywhere, and I would try to kill them, and I did come back like tenfold. And I learned like right away, you can't get the ants because more come back. No matter what I do, more come back. And then I even decided Bali's not an island, it's an ant hill all the way down. Like there, it's just all the way down, it must be ants because they're just everywhere. Then I later learned that because I lived in the rice fields, there was like 7 volcanoes around me and palm trees and no neighbors. Okay. It's because I lived in the cuts that's why it was like that. And when you lived closer to town or in town, not everything was as jungle life. You know, I was just deep in like jungle vibes, and it was that specific home. But anyway, that's how I think about like the AA members. I feel like you can't do anything with them. You can't like teach one or harass one and then they're gone. Tenfold. No, they come back
like ants.
It's like the ants. They just come back and there's more. It's like you just can't.
I know.
But really, to me, when I had that,
I spoke up in the beginning too. Like I was like really, speaking up against AA, and I couldn't believe what was happening. I thought there were going to be people going, yeah, you're right. They were attacking everything about.
And they bring their friends. Yeah.
Just to attack.
They bring their friends.
They actually
some guy
rerouted our website to the AA website.
I believe it. Wow. Was that hard to undo?
No. We handled it right away, and then locked everybody out. But, the fact that, people were...
They're hacking,
They're like, you don't like our way? Well, now we're going to hack you and make sure you don't have any patients.
Tell me you're a cult without telling me you're a cult. Like, what do you mean?
Exactly.
So this guy wrote me. I was like waiting at a restaurant the other day for a takeout, and I was in my spare time, I go on and check out the comments. Like if I ever have like 5 minutes, I'll just go on and see some comments and then move on with my day. Otherwise I'd be there all day. It's like the ants. They just keep coming. They keep coming back. Keep commenting back is what I call it. They keep commenting back. But this guy, he DM'd me actually, and he was telling me I was an asshole or whatever and why I'm killing people or something like that. And then I just wrote him back, just very kind. And it's funny because it was DM is more intimate than social, right? So then he wrote back something more kind, and he told me why, my wife got hit by a drunk driver and this and that, and trauma dump, right? Like AA style, basically. He's giving me like his share trauma dump style. So I was like, okay, I can see where he's coming from. And then he writes, you know what? The reason why I even know who you are is because we watched one of your videos in my home group, and everything you said about AA was wrong. And I was like, wait, you watched my video in your home group? He's like, yeah. He's like, somebody played your video and we all watched it and just talked about how much you don't understand AA at all. And I was like, it's so ironic. First of all, why are y'all watching my video in your fucking home group? But that's why they come back. The ants come back in tenfold because they go tell their friends.
That's exactly it.
And then, and then somebody else told me that took a photo of the phone list that was passed around, and they texted everybody on the phone list one of my videos because they didn't like AA. And I was like, okay, this is just weird. So they do really come like in droves sometimes.
I know.
Because it's a cult. That's why, right? Because it's a cult. People have a lot of feelings.
Yeah.
For me though, like the night that I took those mushrooms when I was a teenager, and I went past the moon and back, and I realized like I got a new perspective on life, which is for me is that I am the energy that's inside this body, and the goal here is to expand and learn and grow. And that was really a visceral and deep, to this day still, purpose for me. That's just what's most important to me, is like I'm a soul inside a body here to evolve, and I carry that with me. And so I never thought, all the things that have felt like purpose to me before have always been scary to me and felt way outside my comfort zone, and like there's no way that I can do them. But what's more important to me, and I don't know if this is stubbornness, I don't know if this is that mushroom experience or what, but I won't betray myself. I won't betray myself. Betraying myself is what led to my alcohol addiction in the first place. Betraying how I felt, betraying my needs, betraying my boundaries, and letting things whatever. And so for me, even though it felt impossible to talk about how AA ideology is harmful, I know it's my purpose right now. Something inside me says this way, and I don't want it to be, and I wouldn't choose it, but I'm not gonna betray myself. So come at me, bitches. But I'm not going to betray myself. So if right now my evolution, it's going to make me cry. If my evolution is part of it is learning how to have drop my balls and have thicker skin because part of my evolution is having me step in an arena where dozens, if not hundreds of people a day are going to come at me and attack me and call me every name that I never wanted to ever be called before, and then I'm going to get up and do it again and invite it again and get back in there again, knowing I'm not a victim of it. I am choosing it. I'm getting back in there every time I post. I am choosing to be attacked because I know that's what's going to happen. I wouldn't have chosen that for myself, but something deep in me says it is this way, girl, and it has grown me. Dissenting has been a huge expander. First, leaving AA has been a huge expander and thinking for myself, but then dissenting, wouldn't have chose it. Wouldn't have chose it. But you know what? I'm glad that my soul, or whatever it is in me, my intuition, what's leading me from deeper inside, leads me in a way where I can expand. I really do believe I'm a soul inside a body here to evolve. And this has been one of the greatest evolutions ever, is to show up in a way where I know what's going to happen. I'm not a victim. I am choosing this. And I'm like, can we choose something different? Because there's a part of me that's like, can I delete it all and run away?
Right. I get it. But you know what, though? This is your purpose for right now. You know how badly I needed somebody like you 30 years ago? Because I walked into a meeting and they're reciting the Bible and they're telling me that it's not religious and gaslighting me, and I'm just like, I just heard all these Bible quotes and God and this, and it's not. And I knew right away. You know, I was a psych major. This, I knew what was going on, and I'm like, wow, this is absolutely insane. And I betrayed myself. You know, I knew it wasn't healthy for me. And yet I went anyway, you know, and I'm, like you said, I'm over betraying myself. Like when I just realized that the relationship I'm in is starting to get toxic and almost borderline abusive, I'm betraying myself by staying in it, you know, so enough's enough.
Yeah, that's the biggest commitment for me, is to not betray myself anymore. It leads to everything that fucked me up in the first place. And it's not easy all the time. No. But it's so important. And that would be an encouragement, is to, you know, be on that path of discernment and trust, radical self-trust, you know, which is exactly the capacity and the skill that AA trains out of us, or trained out of me. AA systematically indoctrinated me. Yep. Yeah, it's don't trust yourself, trust your sponsor, trust the group, the book, the higher power. Yeah. They say you're going to intuitively know how to handle situations that used to baffle you, but they're systematically disabling very deep. And I say AA ideology is cunning, baffling, and powerful, because I didn't understand frog in slowly boiling water that my agency is being stripped from me, my independence, my autonomy, all of the self-trust, all of that. But I didn't notice it while it was happening. And that's why it's so insidious. And I wonder how many people in that are no longer alive because of that indoctrination. We'll never know, will we?
No, but we do know that 100 people walk into a meeting and 5 remain after a year. That's a lot of people that are probably being harmed by this program. Instead of being given a rational, reasonable explanation of why they're behaving the way that they are, they're told to pray to golden doorknobs. And I mean, it's absolutely insane, you know, that this is actually allowed to happen. And the worst part about it is insurance requires this for most rehabs. I don't know how Passages got by it, but insurance requires 12-step facilitation. Nuts. They won't cover what the doctor and I are doing with about an 80% success rate, but they'll cover the program that can't even get 10%, you know, 15 maybe.
It's so backwards. This is like doctors recommending cigarettes.
Yeah.
This is the doctor ripping into President Garfield's back, looking for a bullet with no clean hands and no gloves on.
Same thing.
It's the
same thing.
We're
stuck in
wild.
The 1930s, and you know, America loves its religion. You know, other countries don't see it this way. You know, AA is in other countries, but they don't worship it the same way we do.
For people from in Italy who comment on my YouTube who have said that naltrexone is one of the go-tos for AUD when you go to the hospital or treatment or whatever. I'm like, awesome. Why? And I'm not partial to a treatment. I'm just like, what works best? And if you're not thinking what works best, then you're confused about what we're doing, which maybe really does involve saving lives. And so if we're talking about something that's deadly, which addiction is, then why aren't we looking at the most effective paths? It's backwards. It's confusing. Anyway, you get it.
I do. All right.
Is there anything
And
that we
you
didn't
do too.
cover that you wanted to say?
I can't believe we did 3 hours.
I can't either.
3 hours.
We had a lot to cover. I was so excited to talk to you.
I'm so glad that we got to speak.
Where can people find you? I'll put your links below, but what's the best way? You said you do a show at 5 o'clock?
TikTok.
TikTok
Yeah.
Live?
TikTok at 5 o'clock Pacific. I try to get
Okay.
on there as
Cool.
much as I can, usually every night, unless like I have something to do or too many patients. But I try to get on there every night and talk to you guys about what we're doing. And, you know, if you're not succeeding in recovery, what the problem might be. You know, I don't tell people, keep coming back, and then in the same breath tell them that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. But keep coming back.
What I loved about your TikTok is that the doctor is explaining, there's a patient talking, although you don't see the patient, right? Privacy reasons. And that they're talking about my anxiety is, so much better from yesterday, the treatment, here's how I feel. So if people are curious about this modality, there's all sorts of people like sharing how it worked for them.
Oh, yeah.
So I really love that you guys do that. It's really powerful.
Yeah. I won't videotape the patients because I find it exploitative, but I will videotape the doctor talking to them. You know, there's no reason for the person's face to be on there other than to exploit them for your own reasons. So we're fine. We videotape the doctor talking to the patients. Honey, stop. Okay. Anyway, honey, come on, Bella. Come here, little girl.
She's right. It's time. It's showtime's over. Like we're good.
I know.
We're good here. We covered all the things.
Come here, guys. Okay.
It's Bella needs some love.
Bella,
Look at that cutie.
Bella, come here. I just rescued. She was 12. I just rescued her. She's 12 now. And this little guy, I found him on the street, and this is his new girl, Bella. And oh my God! All right,
So
I love
cute.
you. I love you. I love you.
Thanks
Okay.
everybody so
Thank you,
much
everybody.
for watching today. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. I would love to hear what came up from you, what you think. Do you have any experience with this? Definitely join the conversation below. I can't wait to see you there. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks again, Justin, so much for being here. I really appreciate your time, your wisdom, and your heart.
And thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.